Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Once More with Feelings. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Beth, and this is a podcast about feelings and movies and how we combine those two together and the things we like and don't like about a movie while still loving the damn movie. Mm-hmm. So, today is going to be a special day. It is our first guest.
Yes.
And
wish we had like little fanfare music.
I know, but I can't add it in post now because you said it.
Oh, damn it.
So this is a truly multi-hyphenate joining us today. Writer, director, producer, author, and all-around creative force. She's an indie film producing, crowdfunding consultant and educator, helping other creatives bring their visions to life. Plus, she released her first romance novel in August of 2024.
Cool.
Which sounds absolutely fantastic. I actually love this concept. An anti-capitalist romance about two physical therapists called Rehabbing the Billionaire.
Nice.
Nice. So good. She's also the originator of the Castellini Test.
Yay!
The test that we use almost every podcast.
Yes.
It's such a great test because you don't have to take it verbatim. You can use a lot of it to inform your decision on whether or not this film or this song or just about anything has feminism included in it.
Yes.
So, Bri Castellini, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so exciting to be here. I was so floored when you found me on Blue Sky, and I was like, what do you mean my name's on your website? What are you talking about?
Aren't you glad it was this?
In college?
Oh boy. No, this is fantastic. And honestly, I didn't realize, I don't read a lot of the stuff that Beth gets because I try to have my reactions genuine in the podcast. I didn't realize how far your background goes and how vast it is. That's pretty amazing.
Thank you. You make me sound old.
No, I didn't mean it that way because I'm pretty old.
Not old, just accomplished.
I'm crawling.
No, I mean, you've done a lot and that's pretty cool. I mean, and it's pretty vast. And I didn't mean time wise.
I mean, it's been a decade. I think last year was my 10-year college reunion.
Wow.
Devastating.
Yeah. Oh, no. I get that. No, I get that a lot.
But speaking of college, because I do think we should talk about the Castellini Test briefly, because it is so funny to me that you guys are using it for your podcast. Because just to give the listeners a little bit of background, I was a speech and debate kid. Which is why it will surprise no one to hear that I'm on a lot of podcasts. And so my senior year of college, I did an event called ADS, After Dinner Speaking, which was like a 10-minute comedic oratory event where you picked a topic and it had to be funny. So it was sort of like a 10-minute research heavy comedy speech. And I really don't remember why I chose this, but at some point I got a bee in my bonnet about the Bechdel test. And as I was getting more into writing for TV and film versus prose, which is what I was doing previously, I decided I wanted to do kind of a tongue-in-cheek, woman against woman test speech. That was the original conceit. And then I, did a lot more research, but eventually the speech ended up being this sort of diatribe against how the Bechdel test is used, not necessarily the test itself, which, as you guys have acknowledged, it's not a real test. It's a joke in a comic book. Everyone relax. But at the time that I wrote the speech in 2013, 2014, there was a lot of talk about the Bechdel test in the media, to the extent that there were, I think, 20 plus Swedish cinemas that were using the Bechdel test to rate movies, the same way that we rate movies with the MPAA.
Oh,
wow.
They were giving movies in Sweden a Bechdel test feminism rating.
Wow.
And not only that, but people were reporting on it, Jezebel writers were reporting on that, finally, someone cares that women are treated like actual people. And I was that's not what it does, though.
Exactly.
What are you talking about? So I got, comedically upset. And the funniest way that me and my speech coaches could come up with to end the speech was a bombastic, let's do my own. We'll make the Castellini test, as sort of like an update to what people were saying the Bechdel test did, while also acknowledging like no test can measure feminism. That's not how that works. It's still not an intersectional test because it can't be. There's like no way for it to be. But then I like released it on the internet. I like made a YouTube video. I don't know how you guys originally found it. Like, did you find it on Medium? I think I put it on Medium as well.
Yeah, actually, I am very prone to rabbit holes. Not just because I love rabbits, but because the specific autism I have, I'm hyper-focused on things. And I was hyper-focused on the Bechdel-Wallace test because we knew we wanted to include something in the podcast. So when we started looking through this, I kept going down the hole through the Micamori test, the Pierce test, the sexy lamp test.
Yep.
I saw all
Classics.
of these. And unfortunately, even though they're classics, despite even having the tongue-in-cheek, they were still taking themselves very seriously.
Sure.
When I came across the Castellini test, I knew for a fact you didn't mean this because you said this is not meant to be anything other than tongue-in-cheek.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I like the spirit in which this is given because it's not trying to dictate what the result is. It's trying to give you a thought pattern to follow. And if you can use these 3 rules, you can extrapolate your own idea of whether or not, and that's what we do on here. We will say, I don't agree with this. Despite the fact that it failed all 3, I still think this has feminism in it. I still think it's a great example of feminism because if you look at Tu Wong Fu, it's very hard to find
there's not
women in the film
that are named, have conversations with each other.
And yet there are 3 characters in the movie who are professed to be not women, though I have to admit, I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
Who exemplify feminism.
They do.
So I think that this test, to me, meant it gave us a simple process by which we can initiate our own ideas of feminism in film.
It opens up the discussion of feminism.
For sure. And that was always kind of what I intended with it, because like at the end of the day, what I was always frustrated about with the way that people use the Bechdel-Wallace test was that it was all about like sequestering women in a way that I think a lot of like second wave feminism kind of was known for. So it's like the women have to talk to each other. They have to be in their own little unit. Otherwise it's not feminism. And I'm like, well, that's not progress.
No,
that's not equality. That's not equity. I'm a lifelong tomboy. Are you saying that I am a traitor to the cause of feminism because I have male friends? Like that seems backwards. That seems like not the direction we want to go. So perhaps we can expand the way we think about the way in which women are portrayed in the world. So in any case, I think it's so funny.
I think it does expand on feminism to include masculinity.
Absolutely.
It doesn't preclude it.
It's anyone else.
Right. It doesn't preclude masculinity. It includes it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did find it on Medium. And it must have been. It was called Stop Using the Bechdel Test to Measure Feminism by Bri Castellini.
That's me.
And I will link it in the show notes where it was before so that they can see that previous one if it's still up, because I think that's a fantastic little snapshot of the past. Although I didn't know it was the past at the time. I went, this is fantastic. We're using this. I made a snap judge it with... Even though I hyper-focus, I am very myopic in that focus sometimes. So I found it and I latched onto it.
We're using it.
And I had to use it.
It's timeless. I am not mad about it at all. It was such a shock 10 years after making this stupid thing up as a joke in college to see y'all making a podcast. I was like, well, I have to know everything and I have to be on this podcast. I love being on podcasts. I'm so flattered. I'm so excited. So thank you for including me. This has been such a joy to revisit that time of my life, texting all my old speech friends, being like, hey, do you remember this thing I did? People are still talking.
It's like having a painting sold that you did in junior high. Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, a painting sold. I didn't even know that.
I didn't know it was in the public.
But so
I'm glad it was this thing, honestly, especially since I still work in the film and media industry. And so it feels brand consistent in a useful way.
It really is. And I think, because we're a feelings podcast, we are not a statistical analysis podcast. We are looking for the things that move you, the things that evoke thought. And we are not trained in any of that type of thing. She is a teacher. I am a curmudgeon. And we like to go by our feelings a lot because I think what drives most people are their emotions, even if they're having these high-minded thoughts. Behind them are always the emotions that drive us. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to make sure that we went through the movie we're going to go through today with that in mind.
Yes.
Bri, you picked it out for us. What is it we're going to be talking about today?
So we're going to be talking about the, I think, 2011 film, What's Your Number? A rom-com between Anna Faris and Chris Evans.
Nice.
Which is fantastic because I had no idea Chris Evans had done any rom-coms. I have to say, I know the MCU, I know Knives Out. That's about where it ends with me.
Well, if you know the MCU, then you knew a lot of the cameos in this film.
Oh my Lord. Anthony Mackie, Chris Pratt and Martin Freeman. It's basically a reunion, a pre-reunion of the MCU.
Right.
We've got present and future, past and present Captain Americas.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's such a wild cast. That's why I'm obsessed with this movie, because no one has heard of it, and yet it is so chock full of some of the most recognizable people, and there is also some genuinely sweet things under the surface, and I'm just like, how did this happen? And how did no one hear about it afterwards? How did I hear about it? What's going on? So I have a lot of feelings about this movie. I'm so excited to talk.
No. And these are big actors too. And we're not even just talking about the main cast. Even the ancillary characters are big actors. Blythe Danner and Ed Begley Jr. You know who these people are when you see them. They're not names that you don't recognize.
And in 2011, they were all big actors then. It's crazy how much
Joel McHale. I love Joel McHale.
Oh, yeah,
I love him so much.
Who's trying so hard?
He really is.
Him and his butt are trying so hard, y'all.
Is he smelling his fingers or is he thinking? That got me. I'm like, oh my God.
And we have a voice cameo out of nowhere, Parks and Rec alum.
Yeah, and sorry. And again, as I work with special needs kids, so if they have their hands by their face, are they thinking or are they smelling their fingers? So that's a genuine concern.
That's always going to be on your mind now.
Yeah, this movie sticks with you in ways you don't expect.
So the IMDb on this is: a woman looks back at the past 19 men she has had relationships with in her life and wonders if one of them might be her one true love. And that's where it ends, because IMDb is short and sweet. What is this movie to you in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, it is a movie about a woman for whom society's expectations about how she should live her life and certainly how she should love affect her ability to actually accept the love that will make her the happiest and most fulfilled.
I 100% agree with that.
I love her so much. When we came in, I was like, when you said the movie title, I was like,
is it a pickup line? Is he trying to get her phone number? That's all I could think of.
I gotta have Bri on the podcast. But she picked a movie which seems, on the surface, looking at the outline, as the most trite and silly movie.
Yeah, because you're just thinking it's a dating game. But it is, but it isn't.
I found it to be truly I was laughing through it, a funny, a sweet, a thoughtful comedy. Out of nowhere, I was hit with Listen, I'm so mad at you for it, but also I love you.
I got to take a note of those. I'm going to forget that I wanted to bring something up later on. But I don't want to go out of order because I will go out of order.
Yeah, that happens to me too. Even as I was taking, because I know this movie very well. I like watched it 6 months ago with a friend who also hadn't seen it, and so I was very excited to initiate her. But so as a result, while I was recapping watching it yesterday, like I was getting ahead of myself in the notes because I'm like, oh, I know what happens in this scene, and then I was like, oh, I forgot the 8 other things. So even my notes were like, I had to keep reordering them because I'm like, I know the movie very well, but I also am delighted anew every time I watch it.
And it was nice for me because I tend to do a lot of my actor notes while we're watching the movie. Beth is the preparer. I am the last minute. I don't even make lesson plans like I'm supposed to. So I am not a planner, okay? Hey, again, special education. You don't know what the day is going to bring. You
gotta be flexible.
Right.
Yeah, you have to be flexible. So planning is hard, especially with different levels. But okay, so I tend to do it while we're watching the movie. I'll pull up, the IMDb's and start going through information and websites and stuff because I know the movie and I'm listening to it in the background. And you can ask Beth, when I watch a movie, I don't watch the movie. I play a game on my phone. I am that person who I cannot focus.
Unfortunately, that too. We are the same.
Yeah, it's hard. And I hate that I become this person, but I don't know how to be any other way. But this time I had to do everything beforehand because I did not know this movie enough to listen to it as, in the background. So it was nice to actually have a movie that I didn't know and actually be able to put a lot more focus on it. I talk with my hands, so it's like banging into everything.
I'm Italian. I get it.
Same.
Although we can prove that you're not.
Okay, hush. I was raised in an Italian family. My DNA tests came back saying I'm not as Italian as I thought.
Culturally Italian.
Exactly.
You're allowed. My name is Castellini, and I'm saying you're allowed.
My mom's maiden name was Avizzano. So, yeah, exactly.
But in any case.
But I did not get that. So yeah, I needless to say, I do tend to go out of order. But yeah, it was for me very nice sitting there and being able to put the focus into the movie for a change, as opposed to how I do it. And it's not saying I half-ass it, but I have to do 2 things at one time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I have notes. I am a one-page person. If I write more than 2 pages, then I have to shuffle through my notes, and that makes more noise than we need.
So why don't we go through the cast list, because we mentioned there's so many cameos. Let's go through the primaries.
So we have Anna Faris, who we know from Brokeback Mountain. Oh, what?
Really quick, it's Anna Faris.
Anna. Okay, Anna. My bad.
We're going to be saying her name a lot, so I figure
Anna. No, please, because again, I butcher names left and right. What was the one we had the other day? Was it Dave? No, was it Dave?
I don't know, but I get Rufus wrong every single time.
Rufus, well, we call him by his...
I call him Jasper.
That's because one character Rufus Sewell played.
And now I can't not call him that.
But he was a dick, and he plays a dick in everything we've watched so far.
So, Anna Faris.
Brokeback Mountain, which I didn't know she was in. I feel like I've only...
She was the wife of...
I've never seen it.
I think she was the wife of one of the characters. I cannot remember.
I can't bring myself to watch it again because I bawl my eyes out.
It was horrifying.
It was
such a sad movie.
But needless to say, it said she was in it. I wrote it down. Scary movie franchise. We know that. And
one of my favorites, I love the first Scary Movie, was awesome. She's got comedic chops.
Oh, she does. She really does.
I have a lot of notes about her comedic chops.
Awesome.
Phenomenal.
And Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, because I always like to pick my 3, either ones I know or ones I'm happy with. And I love Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
I got Scary Movie, The House Bunny, good movie, I think. Just Friends.
Okay, yeah.
So those are my 3. Of course, she did a TV series. I haven't seen it, called Mom.
I have thoughts on that series. I've seen bits and pieces of it, and it's another one similarly to this movie, honestly, where there's a lot of like cis heteronormativity that like can get grating. Like sometimes it's well-meaning, and sometimes it's very clearly not, and someone should have done like a little bit of research. But like Allison Janney and Anna Faris is such a power couple that it's like hard to be mad at a show like that. Yeah. So, anyways.
We have Chris Evans, and that entrance scene of him just standing in the doorway with a towel, now we know why he was Captain America, because he has America's ass. We
and
see it.
abs.
And abs.
Mhm. And I think he was filming that around the same time, because a lot of the interviews that I found of Chris and Anna for this movie, they would like reference the first Captain America movie. So I think they were filming around the same time.
That makes a lot of sense.
I didn't look at the dates for that. I did, because we were talking about it.
We're like, he is so cut. Why is he so cut?
I think this was like the last like little thing he did before he became a megastar.
Yeah, probably.
Well, and he had, Fantastic Four, so he had to get into some shape for that.
Sure. But that was a little earlier, I feel like.
Yeah, that was 2005.
So
Johnny
I have not another teen movie on here, because that was his other comedy that I know of. I know he probably did other things, but that's the one I've seen. Well, not really. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, because Scott Pilgrim. I forgot. I mean, it's written in front of me here. I don't know why.
The demographic for Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Scott Pilgrim is like, oh my God, I could watch that movie.
It's a movie that gets replayed in our house over and over, and we've got it memorized.
The soundtrack,
we still play it.
oh my God. Oh, it's such a good movie.
And great at his best.
It was great.
Right.
I mean, I've read the comic. It's obsessive.
Okay. But yeah, people always forget he was in that too. It's like Chris Evans is hilarious.
Oh my God.
Let him be funny, guys.
And that's a funny character he plays in Scott Pilgrim. Freaking funny. And this one was obscure, but I remembered it vaguely when I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, he was in the full length video for Marilyn Manson's Tainted Love. I know. I love finding obscure shit.
Wow. Good for him.
Yeah, it was. I think he's like because it's a teen party type of a situation, and I honestly, did he do that for Not Another Teen Movie? Oh my God, I think that was for that movie. I should have watched the video before we started.
Probably.
Oh my God, it's been what time did I have?
Okay.
Okay, then we have Chris Pratt. So now we have strong feelings about a lot of actors, and Chris Pratt's one of them. I hate how much I dislike him now, because I loved him dearly for so long. But
I loved Andy in Parks and Rec.
Yeah, Andy.
Yeah.
That's who I loved. Whether or not
effortlessly funny.
Yeah.
But my issue with him has nothing to do with his beliefs, his politics. It was an interview he did, and it was how he treated his and Anna Faris's child, and that was that broke my heart.
Well, his references anyway.
His references, like almost like that, like that kid did not exist anymore. I mean, and I from what I was seeing, it looks like their relationship has gotten better. This is not a relationship podcast, even though I like to link them.
But it's a feelings one. It is parents. That makes sense.
And we did talk about this before. You were like, you were wondering if they had met during this time. Actually, they met on a different movie called Take Me Home Tonight, and that was
married on this movie,
2007.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they were already married when they did that. Yeah.
I don't think they have a kid yet, or if they do, he's really young, but I don't think they had their kid.
I don't think so. I think he was born in 2012, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so this must have been right before that. But it is important for sort of the meta jokes of the movie that they were, in fact, Chris Pratt and Anna Faris were married during the filming of this movie.
Makes sense with the drop-ins.
Oh, yeah. And then honestly, like, I'm not trying to jump ahead, but at that one, when she comes into the church and he goes, "Come on," that was such an Andy.
Yeah.
Okay, so for him, I have my two favorite Chris Pratt movies: Onward and the Lego Movie.
Lego Movie is very good.
I didn't give him MCU credit, even though yes, MCU, but still.
Can I just say I loved a lot of the MCU stuff back when I was able to keep up. I hate Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, hot take, I think it's one of the least funny movies I've ever seen.
See, I have a love-hate for it. The first one, I loved. The second one was kind of eh.
I mean, not even rating it. Just on, like, a level of knowing who these people are. There are a lot of good people involved in the film. And
They're so funny.
And
Why is it not funny?
I loved it then. But
now,
then when you look back on it, you're going, why did I like it?
Exactly. I think that's the problem.
And you shouldn't feel that way when you're looking back at a movie you love. So did you love the movie, or did you just love the idea of characters you might have known from comics coming to life?
I think that may be it.
And and of course, it is a wild departure from Guardians of the Galaxy in the comics, but I loved some of those characters kind of becoming, and Dave Bautista doing such a great job. God. He was so good, and he
was so proud of himself to play that role.
I loved that he was getting attention.
Yeah.
Finally, he was being seen for being good at something other than just being in wrestling.
And those of us who are Doctor Who fans, seeing blanked out
Amy
on her.
Pond?
Yes, Amy Pond. That's what I kept wanting to say. My mind totally blanked on her name at the last
Karen
minute.
Gillan.
Oh my God, Karen Gillan. And knowing, oh, look at, we're Doctor Who fans and because as much as I like to believe that everybody knows Doctor Who, I also find people who are like, what? Who? Exactly.
I had a Doctor Who radio show in college.
Oh, wow.
I am your demographic for Doctor Who.
I mean, I've been watching it since I was a kid, but I've been a slacker in the last couple.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's just like there was so much, and it was like changing doctors at a time where I was really chaotic in my life, so I just I fell off.
I kind of lost it at Capaldi. I mean, and I love Peter Capaldi, but I really started losing my taste for it. It was just, again, we always joke about this, about how it's too epic. Doctor Who should be cheesy. It should be, it should be what it was in the 80s, and it should be what it was Chris Eccleston, early David Tennant seasons.
Well,
those are the best.
I want to say this. With Doctor Who, it should be running back and forth through doorways.
Scooby-Doo-like.
With a Scooby-Doo-like theme, and then the next minute it makes you cry.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it should be, but it started taking itself so seriously. And forgetting...
Stephen Moffat.
Oh, yes. I mean, and I used to put a lot on Russell T Davies because Torchwood, but because everybody you love will die.
Torchwood was brutal.
Oh my
gosh. Okay,
God.
we have to get back to the cast of this movie. We haven't even talked about the movie yet.
Oh my God. So
Bri has to rein us in.
I know, this is so bad.
This is usually my role in
This is when you get three nerds together in a conversation. This is bad. And I can go on for days. Andy Samberg, Hotel California, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Because, Jake Peralta he's an ass, but I love him and he grows.
I love that show.
And that's the best thing about Brooklyn Nine-Nine is the growth. I know a lot of people who are like, oh, it's a show about cops and they're, very much against it, but it is. But they change and they grow. Every character has such growth on that show, except for the Vulture. And also, he was also in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 1 and 2, where I don't think Anna was in the second one, but she was, they were in the first one together. I have Anthony Mackie. In the MCU, obviously. He was in Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Did not know that. And 8 Mile, which I threw that in there because I could. Joel McHale. I have for him Community, Drunk History, because apparently he did a couple episodes of Drunk History, which I love. He did an obscure movie with my other love, Misha Collins. He did Kittens in a Cage. It's a women's prison movie. It's a little stupid movie.
Right.
It's not great, trust me.
That's fascinating.
I know. Well, I saw it come up. I'm like, I didn't remember him being in it. Oh my God, he was in it.
What really threw me off is one of the actors that's in this is Martin Freeman.
Yes.
Just out of nowhere, Martin Freeman's there, and I'm like, what just happened?
John, you're lost. Because that is the only acceptable character, because he is another person who we used to love and now not so much. But
he's given some sus interviews too.
Really, really has. And, it's one of those things where you want to love him, but he's making it very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And
Serena's not hard for you to keep your fandom. You are doing the most. Do less.
Yeah, do less.
Right.
Because trust me, we love you. Don't talk.
Zachary Quinto,
yes.
Love of my life, Zachary Quinto. The day that he came out, I got 7 text messages from different people that were like, "Are you okay?"
Oh.
I'm obviously okay, but also
sad.
I loved him in Heroes. He was so good.
He was the best character in Heroes. One of the most popular posts on my Not Medium blog is about how obsessed I was with Sylar for a long time. Oh, I love Zachary Quinto. And Star Trek 2009 is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Funny, I didn't have the Star Trek, but I had American Horror Story.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was in. I mean, the first season with the Murder House, that was really my first time really going, oh, that's who that guy is. To me, that was
him as Spock. He did such a great job. Such a great homage to
to Leonard Nimoy. Yeah,
right.
it was
he
great.
just did such a great job. I thought he really cared about the role, and you could feel that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the entire press, actually, this was around the same time, because it was 2009, this was 2011, but my friend from college who got into this movie that we're about to talk about together with me, we were also obsessed with Star Trek, and we were specifically obsessed with the Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, like, press tour. I don't know if y'all watched any of those interviews. 2009 and 10, Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto are the funniest pair of people on a press tour ever.
And now I'm gonna have to go back and find some of those, because
I actually did see a few of those because of the they were doing Star Trek, and I was really infatuated at the time. They're hilarious. They don't care that they're in an interview at all.
That's
no,
cool.
They don't. And but they so clearly they care about each other. They're just having fun. And that's what you want to see in your media. Like, you don't want to see exhausted people being like, yeah, I made a movie.
And it's speaking of like having, these press interviews and stuff. The ones that I'm seeing with, for Wicked with Ariana and Cynthia, I'm in love with it. And they get so excited. Like, one of their interviewers did Avenue Q on Broadway, and they fangirled over her.
Oh, that's sweet.
And people are like, they're being so weird. They're holding hands. They're a support system. They are two women who are very good friends right now.
Let women be weird.
Yes. Can we not be weird? Can we be... See, that's the thing, is like when you're a little girl, it's okay to be silly little girls and hold hands, and because that's what little girls do. And then when you become a woman, it's like, oh, well, they must be, lovers. No, they're just being friends. It's what we do.
And if they are lovers, it's none of your business.
And it's none of your fucking business. Check yourself, motherfucker.
We curse on the podcast.
I curse a lot.
You can. It's fine. You're good.
Yeah.
My pearls.
Oh. Can't curse in front of the cat.
There are a lot of cameos. There are a lot of people in this film. But if we don't start getting into it,
oh my god,
we're gonna
be another
have
2-part episode.
We're gonna have a part 2, and I don't know that I can sustain a part 2 with his abs. So
fair and valid.
So when we open up, do you want to lead it, Bri?
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, I have the full thing, so I am happy to lead it. So we open on a montage of women's magazines, which, according to IMDb, and then I rewatched and I confirmed. So all of the women's magazine clips that we see reference things in the movie, like, how much should you change to be like your man? Is your sister more perfect than you? Like, little things that are kind of
neat.
almost Easter eggs for some of the sort of plot lines of the movie, which I thought was a lovely attention to detail thing. And that's the thing about this movie. It's an attention to detail that I really appreciate.
Well, I have to say, I was rolling my eyes when that happened. When it comes up, I'm going, oh no, this is going to be this. But as the movie went along, you're like, oh no, this is a different situation. This is a call. These were pre-callbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's like, it is really trying to set you up to think it's a movie that's very different than it is. Like, even the IMDb blurb that you read is not really the thing that it is. But I imagine, certainly in 2011, it was hard to find a way to talk about a sex comedy that wasn't raunchy in the way that an American Pie might be.
Yeah.
Right.
I can imagine there was some struggle to find the nuance in descriptors while also being prudish. There's a lot of 2011 in this movie, but we'll get there. But the first real shots of the movie is that we have a scene where Anna Faris wakes up next to the beautiful, the gorgeous, the extremely hairy Zachary Quinto. And before he wakes up, she does the classic girl in a rom-com thing where she sneaks out of bed, brushes her hair, puts makeup on, puts toothpaste in her mouth, so that when he wakes up a little bit later, he can be like, oh, you're so beautiful in the morning, and then immediately falls asleep. So all of that effort for 5 seconds of validation, the heterosexual woman's experience.
Yay.
But this is the beginning of a runner that I am floored by in this movie, which is characters telling me that Anna Faris looks bad or different suddenly when she looks exactly the same. This happens a lot in this movie, where I'm like, there's not even styling that
I know.
differentiates. What are you talking about? There's a scene later where she puts hair extensions in, and I'm like, it just looks like your hair. What are you talking about? Am I missing? Like, I feel like I'm being gaslit by this movie telling me that like they're different pictures.
A sight gag too. It was like a whole scene
It's
of her
a
doing her
sight gag.
hair for a sight gag that didn't come to really much fruition other than she took them off and threw them.
Someone's child in the production team was a CGI person, and they said, we need CGI flames. And they're like, oh, great. We can do that. Nepotism.
It's so baffling. It's like that Office meme. They're the same picture, you know?
Exactly.
And it happens a lot in this movie where I'm like, I feel like it would not have been that hard to make something visually distinct happen. But no.
But I think in a way, though, that actually is apropos to this film. She is the same. She is still the same beautiful woman all the way throughout the film, but she has a lot of ways in which the situation or the society or culture in this film is telling her she's not.
Mm-hmm. That is a generous read.
Even through the purity culture thing, we're talking about a lot of misogyny that is added on to her. She's self-actualizing the misogyny.
I mean, and honestly, so, you know, I don't want to jump ahead about, you know, what starts her slippery slope of doomsaying for herself.
Well, first of all, she had to make vegan bacon or vegan
sausage.
Not happy about that.
That in itself is just horrifying. I mean,
nothing wrong with anyone making vegan sausage, but
for me to have to eat it would be horrifying.
But for her to drastically change her entire life just to get some kind of notice from this guy who was already out the door.
Yeah.
And
to make a Parks and Recs reference, ooh, that was hard to say. Ann Perkins. Ann did that. She did that season, you know, guy after guy. She changed herself for every guy. And Leslie Knope calls her out on that. You know, the cowboy shirt. So it's kind of the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now we have a new theory, the cowboy shirt theory. So.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like that was a pretty common, like, rom-com arc at this time for a female character to be like, hey, be yourself.
Yes, because, you know, girl power. Yeah, 2011 girl power, you know? Well,
exactly. Yeah. But in any case, we move on to later in the morning. She's making disgusting tempeh sausage for Zachary Quinto, which is what convinces him to stick around, not to hang out with his presumably girlfriend.
No, the sausage.
She invites him to her sister's wedding, and he's like, isn't that kind of serious? And she makes this comment that is then reflected on later. And I'm going to have to ask y'all about this because I'm like, maybe I'm too asexual to understand this.
I caught the comment. I know what you're talking about.
He's like, will your parents be there at my sister's wedding? Yes. Oh, that seems serious. And she said, well, it felt pretty serious when you were doing me from behind last night, but I couldn't see your face. So ... And I was like, are they talking about anal? Or are they just talking about doggy style? Because doggy style is a fairly conventional vanilla sexual position as far as I am concerned.
But then later on, they make it sound like it's not.
Right. Like her sister she basically leaves this situation. There's a brief cameo of Colin, aka Chris Evans. He comes out of his apartment naked, gives her a little wave and walks back in. All we see from that scene is that he is naked and hot and is also hooking up with someone in his apartment. So that's all we get from that. But we move on to a conversation with her sister as she's walking to work, and her sister's like, no one likes doggy style, not even the animals. They always look like they just want it to be over. And I'm like, was this a thing in 2011 that people don't like doggy style?
I really don't know. As a trans woman, I can confirm doggy style is a thing, but it's also many things. And to drill it down to this, unfortunately, one thing is how you're doing it might detail how you're enjoying it.
For sure. But like, I read a lot of romance novels. I read 420 last year, and like almost all of the authors are women, and almost all of these books involve at some point a from behind scene. Because like, so what this joke is setting up is the implication that doggy style requires a level of trust that a casual hookup would not get to, which I think is a false premise to start with. But also, it's not. It's like such a conventional, it's like one of the 3 moves that people do in vanilla sex. So I'm just like very baffled very immediately by the like opinion of sex within this movie. So I'm just like, because they talk going on.
I think maybe it's because it's amplifying that as absurd, yet this movie is all about the purity culture that they're trying to
exactly
overcome.
Because later on they do discuss, like, because all the married women are talking about how, 69 is something that they don't do. They only do when they're trying to rush, or it's dating, when they're dating. So it's like, yeah, that it's the purity culture, I think, throwing in there of all these different, taboo things. The how many partners you have, the how many, what positions you're doing. I think that gets thrown in.
I think it's doing an excellent job of dissecting those things through this absurdist view of doggy style, 69. I kept finding deeper moments throughout this film, and this is one of them. It's a very shallow thing at first, but it progresses into this deeper moment, and you're like, oh, I see where they're going here. It's saying how ludicrous the idea that doggy style is somehow egregious or very difficult or something that most people don't do, when it in fact is a common one.
Right. And I here's my note with it. Because like there's a lot that this movie is trying to do, and I think there's a lot that it succeeds in doing. But one thing I think it falls down on consistently is letting Anna Faris enjoy sex and letting that be a thing. Because like that's at the undercurrent of this movie, right? Is this woman who clearly enjoys sex, who is like seeking it out, is seeking out love, and that too. But purity culture is telling her that she's wrong and dirty. And if she had simply not winced when she's on the phone with her sister at saying, some people like that, because she winces as if she doesn't actually like that. She's just trying to say, oh, I didn't change myself that much for this guy. If she had genuinely liked the stuff that she was doing in bed with this person, I think that would have been more effective, because if she has to pretend that she doesn't like stuff because the world tells her she's not supposed to like it, but she secretly does. And then the end of the movie finds her finding acceptance for the things that she likes that are not shameful at all. Mm-hmm. I think that would have been a slightly more successful kind of nuanced take on this. This movie wasn't ready for that, but that's kind of my position on this, where it's like, I think you're right that that's what they're trying to set up, but they also seem terrified of letting sex just be like a normal, wonderful, joyful thing.
Well, I think they definitely used it as a crutch. They used it for the crutch in the movie, and they never actually allowed her to step away from that crutch. And they kind of kept it going. But even throughout that, they did have deeper moments in here, but it was always about the relationships.
Right. Like it was a very romantic, normative sort of thing where it's like, you can only have sex if it's the one, and then it's fine, and you can do whatever you want. Well, but it's like, well, you can also just have sex.
Strictly cisgendered heterosexual, because she is
missionary under the covers, with eyes closed.
Yeah, she did not go. I mean, in the thrust of the movie, she did not go anywhere else but stay throughout her 19-20 people, which I guess we'll get to. She was strictly all on the male side, all on the cis man side. So it seems like this was like oh wow, it is a lot like Scott Pilgrim.
No, because Roxy.
No, I'm saying it's a lot like Scott Pilgrim, except in the very heteronormative way.
Except she's going through her evil exes. Okay, instead of him going through it. Okay, I get it. Sorry, I'm slow today.
I also really, before we move on, I have to talk about Anna Faris's physicality, which is so good in this film, because she is like a conventionally beautiful woman, but she manages to move her body in a way that makes you think, oh no, she's a little freak. She has this very jerky, hunched sort of way of moving as Allie, which is her character's name, and very sharp movements, very it always looks like she's getting away with something. Like when she eats, anytime she eats, she's shoving things in her mouth, like someone's about to take it away from her. Like she's like a feral dog. And I love it. It's so effective, because it really does sell that despite the fact this is a beautiful woman, she is a little off. And so it tracks for me that she's having so much trouble finding her way in this very conventional, high socioeconomic status kind of family.
Exactly. And and for me, I look at her relationship with her mom and I'm going, that's it right there. There it is. She's never going to be good enough, never going to do what mom wants her to do. And that, again, I know that's part of the theme to the movie as well, and I appreciated that a lot.
Well, and she's also going to find out that it was never about trying to please her mother.
No, it was never about that. But, you don't know that.
Zachary is finishing his breakfast. If we don't ever get past
well, yeah, she breaks
Yeah, we're
up with him.
past that. Yeah, we're past that.
We will never see Zachary Quinto again. He will come up a couple of times. Anytime they say the word Rick, that's him.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm mostly not going to be calling people by their names.
Yeah,
I'm going
me
to call them
neither. I really do.
their actor names. But in any case, she's done with him. She has this phone call with her sister on the way to work where she's like, this sucks. And we kind of just like establish some things about the fact that like, yes, she's sleeping around. Yes, she's dated a lot of people, but because she is seeking her like one true love, like she really does want a relationship. She does want something like what her little sister has in her upcoming nuptials. So we kind of establish her want. This is her, what I want moment. She wants love. She can't figure out how many guys she has to go through to get to her one love, but she's getting frustrated.
Yes.
So she gets to work. I thought this was noticeable in the noteworthy in the styling. Everyone at this office, it's like a generic office. Everyone else is wearing like navy and gray, and she's wearing this bright red jacket.
That jacket caught me, and all I could think of is, in these movies, everybody has like, no, she does wear this jacket later on, which kind of blows my theory. But in that moment, in movies, we see people have like multiple different colored coats for the, like, oh, she's wearing this one for this day. And then later on, you'll see her wearing a different coat. And I'm like, bitch, how do you afford all these coats? I want a red coat, but I can't justify that because I know I won't want to wear it every day.
We can't talk about the finances of her jacket collection without talking about the finances of their gigantic apartments where both of these people are unemployed artists.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Family money.
Yeah, it has to be, but we'll get to it. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But she gets to the office. Her boss is Joel McHale, and through his like office window, we have to make reference to this because it's one of the funniest jokes, and it's a great runner where he's like in a meeting with somebody, and he's like got his fingers up to his nose, and her office mates are playing a game. Is he sniffing or thinking? And she's like, oh, he's obviously thinking because she's the kind of person who like is an optimist. She's an eternal optimist. She wants to believe the best in people. She wants to believe the most romantic version of things, which is like kind of her both flaw and like defining lovely characteristic. And she's like, oh no, this woman must be thinking, she must be saying something really thought provoking. And her coworker responds, yeah, if what she's talking about is what his fingers smell like. Such a great, just like sideline from a guy who never speaks again in this movie.
He got a great line.
He did get a good
timing.
line.
The like timing of this movie is so good. I've had this thing for the last couple of years where like most comedies aren't cut like comedies anymore. They're cut like dramas, which undercuts the like funny performances that are happening. This is a peak comedy editing movie. Mm-hmm. This movie is sharp. It is quick. It gets in and out, but it manages to pack all the things you need into it. It's just so refreshing to see a movie paced like a comedy that is a comedy. Mm-hmm. I cannot express that enough. Then she gets fired. It's pretty sad, but it is what it is. We got to move the plot along.
Yeah.
So she gets fired, and we intercut her getting firing with her like riding the subway home dejectedly with all of her things. And so to distract herself from the getting fired and a phone call from her mother that she doesn't want to answer, she finds like an old like Marie Claire and just starts like flipping through.
Which is a nice 2011 callback to print media. So print media, children, is when we have words on paper, and paper is made from trees
those things that they sell in the food stores that nobody really buys anymore? They look like books, but they're not books.
They're soft, floppy books.
Exactly.
Filled with mostly lies.
They're usually by the cards.
So we finally get the premise of the movie. This is where What's Your Number comes from. It is the title of this article that she's reading. Yes. And it's all about like the number of, like the average number of sexual partners for women in America, I think specifically. And I think that's all we get here is like the average number of partners a woman has in her lifetime is 10.5, according to this article. And she exclaims, but she exclaims not because it seems high, which a lady next to her on the train comments, oh no, that seems very high. And she's like, what? No, that's low. That's so low. But then she starts kind of overthinking it. And then she starts making a list. And you gotta love a rom-com protagonist with a list.
Oh, yeah.
Only good things come from women writing lists. So she starts writing them down. I am immediately obsessed with how generic the names are, which does, in fact, become an important like thing but I still do think it's very funny that like the first names are like Jake Adams, Mike Miller, first name, last name. Like it's so generic in ways that are important to the plot later. But it's just like seeing this name of like just white man name generators.
Right,
what are we doing here? So we head next to her mother's house. We finally meet where her mommy issues come from for her sister's engagement party. She is passive aggressive too. There's a lot of back and forth. It's immediately clear from this interaction, like, oh, this is where all of her hangups are coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This very like waspy 2.5
Where's
kids.
the dress I bought you? I'm wearing it.
Yeah,
it looked better on the mannequin.
Like,
I mean,
this
Very
is a woman
passive aggressive, yes.
who looks at her daughter but doesn't see her.
Yeah.
And is sort of like the core sort of frustration, certainly, for Allie, Anna Faris. She's lambasted for not bringing Zachary Quinto to the party, and she kind of just like avoids that conversation. She doesn't want to admit that yet another relationship has fallen through because she's embarrassed by it. And now she's like extra embarrassed because of this list she's making, which now includes her step cousin, Beau. Very also a great little side runner.
Good. It was very good. It's like, oh no, not really relationship. Not really in our family. It's not.
He's technically a step cousin, and then she like hunches over and writes his name in the list. Just really effective, like short, because we don't need to know anything about Beau. Like the few scant details we have and the way that she reacts to them are funny. And then she makes like a comment later that's funny. It's like this movie has such a like brevity with its comedy that makes it effective. They don't have to explain it to me.
Oh yeah,
right?
There's a real economy to the writing.
The economy is the word I was looking for. Yes,
there really is, because it's concise and it drives it forward without over explaining, especially when it comes to her apartment. How's she affording that even on her salary, much less being unemployed and not desperately looking for another job?
No, she's not.
But running around with her family and everything else.
It has to be family money. Because what's your mom doing with money? She hasn't grandkids yet.
They set that up.
Exactly.
They set that up for you. Her mother is dismissive. Her father is overdoting. But somewhere
but also
along the way,
distant in his own way.
And the house, the size of that house is massive, so there's money somewhere. Yeah.
And it somehow has trickled down to her, but probably with a bunch of passive aggression that she kind of just accepts for lack of a better option.
I mean, you see the car she's driving. Obviously, she's willing to put up with some things to get things done, but not a lot of things in order to make her life more comfortable.
Yeah. There are some economy questions I have about this movie, and career-related ones that maybe we'll get to later. But like overall, it's very clear that this is not the priority of this movie.
No,
this movie is
not
interested
at all.
in answering these
That's
questions.
a subplot.
This is not a working girl film.
Yes,
right, which is fair, which is completely fair. So we have a scene with her sister Daisy, her little sister, even though she does not look little. Like,
no,
I think
she doesn't. She looks older.
Yeah, the actress does a good job, but she does, because Anna Faris is like so little and she's got like such a round childlike face, like anyone is gonna look older than her. So like I don't know if the casting quite worked out for her to be younger than her, but you know.
I don't know what the actress's name is, but she is beautiful.
I love her freckles.
Gorgeous.
She is so her face is so symmetrically beautiful. It has this.
I mean, that's why they cast her.
Yeah,
because she has to be the prototypical angel child.
Yes.
And she really is. Even Anna and her both together. Even though you're like they're obviously not sisters, but they are just lovely.
Yes,
just lovely as a couple of siblings. You'd be like, oh, those are beautiful siblings. You know?
Oh yes, and they
also
get along.
Make sense as siblings.
Yes,
they get along. But they also fight.
Oh yeah, like they should.
Sniping. And like Anna Faris is constantly saying insane things, and her sister's like, "Stop doing insane things right now. I'm busy."
Yeah,
but like in a way that feels very believable because it's like this is a lived-in.
Oh yeah, like I'm used to your bullshit, and I just can't deal with your bullshit right now.
The runner throughout the movie of her sitting at a table and Anna coming in and seeing her and going, "Oh no, what?"
Yes.
That is a familial thing if I've ever seen one.
I'm going to stop coming to meals with you,
And then she's like, no, you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Well. And like, that's what's lovely is that like, these are two people who are going to snipe at each other, but are also like fully ride or die in a way that I thought was really sweet. Because like, this could have easily been like a 27 Dresses situation where like the sort of like, grabby me, younger sibling gets married and is a huge problem about it the whole time, and the older sibling has to like rise above. This is not this dynamic. Like, she might be perfect, quote unquote, Daisy, but like, she is also at the end of the day her sister's best friend. So you know what? We're gonna just accept each other's eccentricities and move on.
Yes.
And it wasn't ignored either.
No.
So it didn't get ignored in place of driving the plot along. It was there, and they truly cared about each other, and they just didn't have those issues.
Yeah.
They had enough problems with their mother. They didn't really need to fight.
I appreciated that she had like a handful of relationships that were not completely toxic. I think that was important to her. She needs that support system.
Right.
So while we're kind of doing this scene, we learn a couple of other important aspects to the plot. She has counted up her sex list, and she is at 19. She has slept with 19 guys. Oh my goodness. Slut.
Well over the 10.5 average, I must add. So,
I mean,
you know, she's double the national average and feeling some kind of way about it. So she gets a little tipsy and does a tipsy engagement party speech that everyone films and puts on YouTube, which is adorable.
It's funny.
But we learn a really important thing here. We learn that the future brother-in-law actually dated her sister in the past. They dated in high school.
Right.
And then got back together much later. So this is going to be important for later in establishing her kind of like big plan to fix her life. We also just learn as an aside that the reason that they broke up the first time is because he slept with her best friend, who is still a part of their friend group.
That's
and
funny
everyone's
too.
cool with it.
And also we learn that she is a lightweight and takes no time to get drunk at all.
She's so little. She's pocket size.
Right. So she had a few sips of that champagne and she
when-
was good to go. I like the fact that her speech wasn't about her being a horrible person and being drunk while she was doing it. Because even when they call back to it later, it's just funny to her and it doesn't devastate her.
Well, she's like surprisingly comfortable with who she is for a person who spends like all of her time trying not to be who she is. She's like sort of she's very much a study in contradictions, where it's
which kind of
trying.
This kind of like, you know, you mentioned 27 Dresses, and a kind of like also if you look at Bridesmaids, Kristen Wiig's character, very self-deprecating, very not comfortable with who she is, and then in her speeches, very much calling back to herself of self-loathing, while also putting down the people around her, whether, you know, with intention or non-intentional. So yeah, it's nice to see this character not be that way.
Well, I think the intention here wasn't about whether or not she was comfortable with herself. This was more about how she makes people around her happy. She wants her mother to be happy with her. She wants her sister to look at her and feel like she can be good, you know, like she's an
optimist. She's a romantic. She loves people. She has the charisma of a cult leader. Everywhere she goes, people are obsessed with her.
It's true. Not a single one. I mean, only one person out of all the guys that she talks to, again, didn't really want anything to do with her.
Yeah, no, she's like this wonderful person. And if she can just like accept that rather than trying to be what everyone else wants, perhaps she will find her happiness, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
I also just have to call out that the best friend from high school who ran away with the brother-in-law previously is played by Eliza Coupe, who is one of just the most beautiful, funny people I've ever seen. She was on the final season of Scrubs. That is by far considered like a spinoff. She was in a bunch of different things. She was in, what's that? Happy Endings.
Happy Endings. Yes, that's where I saw her.
Underrated show.
Very good show.
Eliza Coupe is my
That's where Coach
queen.
went.
Oh, yeah, Coach.
From New Girl.
Eliza Coupe is married to him in that show. She's fantastic. I love her. So I was just happy to see her here, even though she's kind of the bit part as like the almost slut of the, she's like considered the slut of the group. And I'm using that word because that's what the word is. And it's obviously tongue in cheek, but like, yeah, Eliza Coupe is sort of like, she's the one that dates around, but then it's, you know, surprise, surprise, Anna Faris has dated around more. Oh my gosh, she's worse than the one that they all think of as the group's, you know, stray cat.
I really like the fact that despite the fact that they said, oh, slut to her, when Anna's, you know, when she recounts that she's actually had, when she's found out to have had 19, it didn't take the title away.
No,
She still owned it, and she was fine with it because she doesn't have this obsession with trying to prove her purity.
Yes.
So she was fine with it, whereas Anna's still trying to come to terms with where she fits in within this cultural milieu here of the system. So,
exactly. So we go to a bar or a club. It's unclear. It's a very strangely designed space where there is alcohol and lots of people.
Tom Haverford would be there, and they'd order something that's a scent of an alcohol.
Absolutely, that would be what
a light.
So she and her sister's friends and her sister go out. And for the purposes of this movie, her sister's friend group is her friend group.
Right.
I guess just for like continuity and ease of introduction, because she doesn't seem to have her own friends, but it's unclear if that's just not, we don't see,
or they're just all friends. Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't appear that the girls are like that far apart in age, so like it's conceivable to me that this weird incestuous rich people community shares friends. But basically, like, she's still feeling some kind of way about her number. And so she initiates like a drinking game where they all write down the number of people they've slept with, put them in a jar, and then have to guess, because she's like trying to suss out where everyone else is. She's like, I can't be the only one this high. But the highest number that they get to is Eliza Coupe's, which is 13.
Oh my God.
She tries to vamp it out. She tries to pretend that she got a different number, but they're like, oh my gosh, 19. Oh, that's so many. Oh, wow. Guys, everybody relax, please. And it turns out she's been carrying around this article with her. She like pulls it out of her pocket.
She has it with her.
I'm so worried about this. And we learn a second piece of information from this article, which is not only is she twice the national average, but according to the study, women who have slept with more than 20 people rarely find love, which is like one of the Eliza Coupe is like, who figured that out? The scientists at Marie Claire magazine, which I appreciated. But then the other girl was like, no, she's like a Harvard scientist. And so we're just supposed to accept that this is true.
I want to see the peer-reviewed articles, you know?
I need citations, please.
Yes.
Like, and so this is actually, if you don't mind, I'm going to steal your trivia thing for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Do it.
Because this is important in this moment. Apparently, by the time the film was greenlit, because this film was in like development for quite a long time, and Anna Faris was a producer on it, was like really trying hard to get this movie made. When it was eventually greenlit, it was many years later. So, you know, she was a little bit older by the time they actually got to make the movie. And apparently, Anna Faris wanted them to raise the number of sexual partners that she had, because she was like, a girl her age in a modern world would have more life experience. Mm-hmm. But the studio wanted it to be 16 people. Because they felt that too many partners would make the character unrelatable to the audience. Apparently, they compromised at 20. Like, that was the compromise. But Anna Faris wanted the number to be much higher.
Chris Evans got 300. 300 blah, blah, blah.
A thing that we didn't really talk about the sort of, you know, double standard of it all. But anyways, after this conversation, she's like, all right, science says I'm a dirty slut who will never find love. So I'm at 19. That means that the next person I sleep with is going to be my husband. And then she proceeds to get drunker and drunker with a series of like loud declarations about how responsible she's being, which is a very funny contrast.
Yes.
Like, to making good decisions takes a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier in the night, it doesn't matter, but earlier in the night we saw Joel McHale again. He buys her the first round of shots, and he like makes a comment about how he actually did her a favor by firing her, because she didn't really seem to like marketing. And she kind of like acknowledges that, but is also like, all right, whatever, man.
He's a real first-year Jeff in this one.
He is a first-year Jeff. First season Jeff, yeah.
That's the kind of character that Joel McHale tends to play, though, because he's so tall and handsome. It's like, he can't not be a smarmy jerk.
I know, and he's not like that in real life. That's the great thing about him. He's just not like that.
He's a sweet guy.
He really is.
He does seem to be very sweet, which I appreciate from him, because it would be so easy for him not to be.
Oh, totally, because he's beautiful, yeah.
Very beautiful. And speaking of this beautiful man, the next, we kind of smash cut to the next morning after her big night of I'm going to be responsible binge drinking. And she's in bed with Joel McHale. He's wearing a suit jacket and nothing else.
We got the view that Dean in Community that he wanted, and what was it? It was the billiards, the pool class that they took, and him and the old man, they ripped their underwear off, and then he's like leaned over the pool table.
So
that's the
now
scene.
you know.
Now we know what that
He has
scene was.
a weirdly long butt crack.
He does
It's
have a
whole
weird.
thing.
He can't brag about that one, can he?
Prince of Persuasion.
He's so
Prince of
tall.
Persuasion.
So she's like, maybe this is my husband. She like calls her sister in a panic, like, oh no, I slept with my 20th guy. But I don't know, maybe he's something. But then we get the sort of end of the runner of the finger sniffing, which is we watch him like scratch his balls and then sniff his fingers, and she's like, he's definitely not my husband.
I'm
and
just
so now
disappointed he's not wearing the striped Beetlejuice underwear from Community.
But I think this is really hitting her low.
Definitely.
Before she comes up with this plan.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
So this is where she gets serious about.
We're putting the final pieces together on like what is this movie's like underlying structure. So like she is trying to get Joel McHale out of her house because she's like, this ball sniffing weirdo has got to get out of here. I cannot do this. I cannot have his babies.
I don't want to kink shame, but I want to kink ban. Anyway.
Yes,
So get out of my
exactly.
house.
Get out of my circle.
Listen, she's not trying to yuck his yum. It's just not her yum.
Exactly.
So she gets an unexpected ally in this attempt to get him out of the apartment in the form of Chris Evans, who kind of rushes across the apartment floor because they like share a floor. They're the only two apartments on their floor of the apartment complex. And he's like, hey, I locked myself out of my apartment. Can I use your phone? And then he kind of gets the vibe of the room and like helps her out, like getting Joel McHale out of the room. But as they finally push Joel McHale out of the room, his apartment opens and a girl walks out who Joel McHale immediately starts flirting with. Great detail. Especially considering he was like trying so hard to stay with Anna Faris, but then immediately flirts with the first girl he sees after he leaves her apartment. And Anna Faris is like, aghast, Chris Evans, how dare you? Couldn't the girl in your apartment have helped out with the being locked out thing? And he's like, listen, I didn't want to have this conversation, so I just left. Everything's fine. And he also kind of calls her out for being a hypocrite. He's like, did we not both have the same morning?
Exactly.
Like, I left. You lied to the man. Like, I don't see we're not so different, you and I. But she's like, no, I hate that. And then he makes a comment that becomes very important. We learn that he has seen her engagement speech because he is the son of a family of cops, and he has everyone in the apartment on Google Alerts. And this is an important detail about him that will matter. But he's like, oh yeah, I'm always getting dirt on people. We also, in this sequence, get the first line that I repeat endlessly in my life. And I forgot that it was from this movie until I was doing the recap. But I think he's like looking at her little weird diorama things, which are like important in the future to her, like whatever she ends up doing. But he's like, where'd you get this? This is so cool. And she's like, oh, I made that. And he's like, no shit. Shit is her response.
Yeah,
and
I
no
love that.
Shit. I swear to you, everything I write has that in it, and I have to take it out because I'm like, I use it too much. I use it in my real life. Like it's the most perfect set of two lines that I've ever heard. I don't know why.
No, it's great because I had never heard that before, and now I kind of want to use it when someone says no shit. I'm going to go shit.
It's a simple
and she
rebuttal.
says it in such a deadpan way. Ugh.
But what was also funny is when he says how, he has everybody on the Google alert, and he goes, well, that's how I found out that so-and-so was going to marry his dog. Not Bandit.
Yeah, there's a runner that their like downstairs neighbor is fucking his dog.
And like later on, you see the dog, but you see you don't see the guy's face. You just see the dog and his body from the shoulders down. And it's just the funniest thing that they didn't even want to put a face to the guy.
But this is another example of just like, there's just so many jokes in this movie, but they're like, some of them are just little and we just get them out. But it creates this really robust world because like they have something to say about everyone, but we don't have to like linger on it. Like, I feel like a lot of comedies these days are like, we linger on things and it's like, it's a joke, move on.
But I do like when a joke comes back. And that and that's one of those jokes that does come back.
Like reinforces.
They'll bring them back around, and I really enjoy a circular joke.
I think that's to me is the funniest part.
But what I like about their dynamic is that Anna and Chris is still trying to be charming. He's still trying to be casual and charming, and she is completely calling him on his bullshit. Of all the men that she is dealing with, she's only really wise to him.
But
true.
also that's because her guard is fully down. She's not trying to impress him. So she is free to be exactly who she is. And he calls her on that. Because for the first time, somebody is calling her on things that she actually is versus things that she's trying to be for someone else. So like this is a true like meeting at neutral for both of them, I think, in like a really lovely way. And they're so fun together. Like the sparks are immediate. Like even when they're yelling at each other, like they're both like clearly kind of vibing with like just getting to like express a real emotion. They actually, they get to be mad. They get to be frustrated. Like they don't have to be the best part of themselves. Even as Chris Evans is trying to be charming, he's like doing it in a way that is like clearly needling her. Because he's like, I don't really think I have a shot here because you clearly hate me. So I'm going to just have some fun with that. And like, I think that's sweet.
And his character is a character that, see, he's a step ahead of her. He's comfortable with who he is. He is not following in the family footsteps of law enforcement.
He has the privilege to do that.
Yeah,
he does have that privilege. But
conventionally attractive cis man.
Well, yeah,
nobody
there's
is upset
that.
with if he sleeps with people.
Exactly.
Purity culture only applies to those who have less power.
And that is something that I wish we got into more, is like the double standard of like, why is everyone like broadly, like we make jokes about Chris Evans within the context of the movie, but broadly speaking, no one's like, Chris Evans is a lower quality man. I guess they kind of do, but they never
mom
really
does, but that's about it.
No,
really.
but that's about position within the thing. It's not how many people he slept with. No one asked him how many people he slept with.
No, it's like it's his job, it's his lifestyle, it's how he dresses. That's where his lower, less than is dictated, and where she's dressing the part and she's looking the part, but oh my God, she has slept with 20 people. So, there's that's what matters. Well, why does that matter over how he dresses? In either way, it shouldn't matter. He's successful and he's happy and he's comfortable in his life and who he is. She should be allowed that same, grace.
Freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like he's very much set up as like kind of the guy her, but in like parentheses derogatory.
Yeah.
Like, we're set up to believe like this is her as a guy and we hate that. Or do we?
Yeah.
So we head to our other framework for this movie, which is her sister's wedding. Because we kind of like have two frameworks for this movie. We have her scheme that she's about to enact with Chris Evans and her sister's wedding. Like these are the two sort of structural supports for the movie. That the
which
rest
is
of the character
informed
stuff.
by the wedding. So her stress from this is informed by that wedding. It's
certainly
that
especially
need to conform to.
Yeah. And she like had a date and now she doesn't, but she doesn't probably want to show up alone. So there's, a lot of that kind of stuff. But in any case, at cake tasting, where she is once again going full goblin mode, God bless her.
I love that so much. She was eating like someone eats when they're actually hungry and don't care.
And like starving in the desert, has not seen cake in years.
And then the camera pans and you see all the different plates of cake and you're thinking, holy shit, she's just gonna inhale all that, isn't she?
Yeah, and she can put it away. She's got that energy about her.
Oh yeah.
Love that for her. Really quickly, so there's like a joke about how she doesn't want to get seated at the singles table, and her sister makes like an offhand comment like seating charts are really hard. And I remember when I was first watching this movie when I was like, my early 20s. And I was like, oh, that must be just like a funny joke about how weddings are complicated or whatever. But then like I had to plan my own wedding. Seating charts are actually very hard. And we had a very small, not that contentious wedding group of people. But like it is harder than you think. And I have a whole new appreciation for poor Daisy in this movie.
I kind of took that as her excuse as to why she is going to end up at the singles table, because, I hope I'm not going to get put at that table. And it's like, well, seating arrangements are hard. Because I'm not going to tell you I already put you there. So
for sure that's what she's trying to do. But like I always wrote it off as like, why are these people making weddings so complicated? And it's like I had one of the most chill weddings that I've been to, and it was still so complicated.
Well, I was really hoping that during the wedding they would have that opportunity to kind of do the wedding singer thing, where you have that single table that's supposedly a bunch of losers, but they're really not, and you get to see that. But they went a different direction, which is fine. I like that you're going to be at the singles table. That's not the worst place to be.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Unless Bo's there. That could be awkward.
Yeah, Bo's there. Could be awkward.
We cannot forget step cousin Bo. But the important thing that happens at this in this scene is sort of our final like piece of the puzzle, which is we get our first X flashback because Chris Pratt, looking pre-Guardians of the Galaxy, but not that far pre-Guardians of the Galaxy cut, wanders in and she's like, oh my gosh, it's disgusting Donald. And her sister's like, what do you mean? That man is perfectly handsome. Remember, at the time they are married, so it's all fun and games. And then we have a very fat-phobic flashback, extremely 2011, where both Anna Faris and Chris Pratt are wearing like padding and fat suits.
Yes.
And basically the premise is that like she learned to cook because she was so embarrassed to be seen with this guy. But now he looks hot. And so like this kind of plants the idea in her head that like my sister's getting married to a previously shitty ex. This, my most shitty ex is like handsome and successful and marrying a rocket scientist. What if I don't actually have to be more of a slut than I already am? What if I could just find a guy from my past who's gotten better? I've dated 20 of them. There's got to be at least a handful that have gotten better.
Exactly.
Maybe this is a loophole that I need so that I can still fall in love without being a horrid crone of a woman.
I think in some ways it might even be a little bit, I mean, I may be reading into things here, but out of 20 people, you kind of hope that you found some decent people, you know, that you had the common sense, or I say common sense, that's a fallacy, but the foresight or good instincts to pick people that you really could care about. Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't really ever pan out that way because people are complicated.
Mm-hmm. Right.
No one's ever one thing.
And she's very much hoping that it was like right person, wrong time. Like that is her whole like, I have to believe that these were the right people just at the wrong time. What if now was the right time? Because it's personally convenient to me.
Exactly.
So she goes home, she opens up her little notebook of extremely generic names and immediately finds out that it's very hard to search for people with extremely generic names on the internet, which I thought was a great callback. Cause like, but whenever I forget about, cause I always forget that she tries to do her own research first. And it's like, that's great because otherwise I would have made fun of this movie for its very generic names. But now it's like, oh no, that's the point. Like we're going to make it part of the joke where there is no detail in this movie that is untouched, you know, like every detail is like lovingly put in. There's a callback to it. It all it all ties up.
Yes.
You know, it's a very compact movie in a way that I really appreciate and in a way that it does not have any business being. Like this is too small of a movie to be this well wrought.
Yes.
But in any case, she fails and she remembers, I have a hot cop adjacent neighbor. Maybe my cop adjacent neighbor who is also hot separately will help me. We see him naked again. It's very funny. It's very tantalizing. He is not interested. He's like, you seem like the kind of girl who tries to make a bad thing work. He is not wrong. And he's like,
eating the apple.
I love the mouth dab.
Yes, he has the towel in front of him and then he pulls it up to clean off his face. And it's like,
because he's trying to get a rise out of her.
Exactly.
It was so deliberately funny.
And then when he walks in, it just happens to be hanging in the right place. Right. You know?
He knows what he's doing.
Well, you had a hook there already.
Yeah.
So.
This man is a performer. He's a musician.
He knows
what he's doing. He's just so funny, but he's like, I will not help you with this. This is crazy. But she gets him back because she knows he's in there with a hookup. She knows what he's like. So she takes a you know,
that red coat.
The red coat.
She takes the red coat. She takes a risk. She runs in and
Mom
gives
fell
him
in the shower.
She's all wet. Just like a great little scene where she basically like,
and she picks up the towel that he had and she throws it because she's looking for his sneakers.
It's again, the physical comedy is just chef's kiss. But she hustles him out of there, takes him back to her apartment, and she's like, all right, here's the deal. You help me find my exes. I'll help you avoid yours. And he's like, this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And so that now all of our pieces are in play. We've got the scheme. He's going to help her find her exes so that she can find one who's good without having to go over her number. She's going to help him escape all the women that he has sex with and doesn't want to talk to.
And he's free to hang out there
and
in her apartment to avoid them, which really kind of makes them coexisting.
Kind of, yeah.
Oh yeah, he takes full advantage, and I love it.
God, I know. That's the bath.
He really does do the
bath.
Andy in Parks and Rec kind of situation, doesn't he? Just kind of moves himself in.
But he notices her little clay sculptures that she makes.
Well, you noticed them before, but
He did.
noticed them. Yeah,
the very first time.
He makes comments about them in a way that he really appreciates them and thinks they're cool, and not in that, I'm humoring you to get sex kind of way.
No,
but also,
he genuinely is impressed by them.
Right.
This is the first woman he actually maybe wants to have a conversation with. Gasp.
Right. Interest in her as a human.
Exactly, yes.
We get a little scene also with them where they leave the apartment for a little while. She buys him a sandwich.
Yes.
He eats half of it in one bite, and it is unfortunately very hot. And like they just kind of like have this cute back and forth where he's like trying to suss out like why she's doing this, and she's kind of cagey because she's like, not because she doesn't want to admit it to him. I don't think she wants to admit it to anyone. I think she's ashamed of like why she has to fall to these levels, why she has to do this, and doesn't want to admit it.
I love how she says, I don't think you've had a relationship longer, or the longest relationship was with that sandwich, yes. And then he takes that huge bite.
Line, and then he eats the entire sandwich, yeah.
Yes.
Because like she's calling him a slut, and he's like, what? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Are we not both the same?
Exactly.
Like, I'm fine. This is also where we learn he's a musician officially, which is like sort of important, I guess. Their jobs, again, not the most important, but
there's a mechanic to it that comes back later to allow her to find him. Yeah.
This is where we get it. Now back to wedding planning. She's doing wedding dress try-ons with the girls. The continuous conflict between whether both of their parents will attend the wedding at the same time continues. This is where the running gag of like her showing up to a meal with her sister to find there's another place setting set because she's been ambushed comes up. But like this plot doesn't really like go many places except to like introduce the dad at the end. But like there's basically this running conflict where like the mom doesn't want the dad at the wedding, but the sister wants them both there. And then the mom's not coming to the wedding because the dad is, and then everything is fine later. Yeah. But like this is not an important plot. So I just sort of mentioned like it comes up here again. They talk about this is where they talk about 69
right,
go back and forth about how 69ing is for teenagers who are trying to pack everything in at once, which like is a funny
I mean, it's not untrue in some ways that as a kid you're kind of grasping for any moment you can, and so you just try to pack everything you saw in that one Kama Sutra that passed around the school. So
listen, I'm asexual. I didn't know any of that was going on. I was like, that all sounds gross. What if we read a book? So it is always funny to like hear, like watch movies, read books about like people reminiscing about like, oh yeah, remember how horny we were as teenagers? And I was like, you guys were horny? How did you get anything done?
Don't you know you had chores?
Yeah, exactly. Like
some of us had adulting to do,
Even as children, we had to adult.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like there's this extra layer of like fiction to everything where I'm like, that must be fake. No one's really like that. And then I talk to people and like, no, yeah, this is a pretty good representation of what it was like. And I was like, wow, that sounds like it's sex for you guys.
Was I there?
I think what you probably find more often than not is that they're just as sad about it as you are to find out they do it.
It's all Greek to me.
No, I always have this like conversations with people that I went to school with and my peers, and I was like, was I there? Was I there at the time? I don't remember these things happening. I don't remember these things like existed. I'm pretty sure I was there.
Kids like to invent things.
Oh yeah.
Part of the anti-establishment purity culture thing.
Hey, we invented a whole gang that didn't exist and got blamed for crimes in our town.
Oh, there you go.
It didn't exist. And we knew how to make stickers. It's a long story.
Well, speaking of groups of friends and gangs, this girl gang has learned about her deal with Colin.
Yes.
And her like plan to not go over 20. And she has to admit that she's doing the scheme because he just texted her and it turns out he found her magician ex, and we get a very funny flashback where there's no fat phobic jokes. No, amazing. Yay. Just maybe some goth phobic, unclear.
And just a Chris Angel kind of poking fun at Chris Angel. Yeah.
Yeah, and like it's his like initial sort of pickup line is like, you know, he does the coin behind the ear trick, but then truly one of my favorite jokes in this movie comes where we cut then to them in bed together, where he pulls out a pile of coins from her vagina, apparently. Incredible.
I'm like, where's he hiding these coins?
I know. The escalation, the fact that he implies that she can store more there than behind her ear, like everything about it is insane.
It just might be a call to how good a magician he is and how hard it is for a magician to actually make a living with this job.
Oh my God.
And I mean, she seemed satisfied and impressed, so like clearly something was working about this relationship.
It was the extra change for the meter.
For the meter.
Yeah, she always had extra money. It was great. She didn't have to trade in quarters for the laundromat. It was awesome.
Nice.
Explain why Joel was always smelling his money.
Because he's like, people keep taking it out of me.
Damn.
Woof. So we go to a bar to check in with the magician X, and we see him looking less goth, but still doing the coin behind the ear trick. And she's like,
nope.
All right, I've seen what I needed to see. I'm out.
Well, he hasn't changed in 10 years. So.
No, just his looks.
Yeah, and she basically makes the point of like, listen, good for him, but like, if I'm gonna go backwards, I want to still be able to go forwards. This guy is stuck there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be stuck.
And honestly, I can appreciate that.
For sure. Important that she has these boundaries.
Yes.
Then we have like the most sort of like explicitly purity culture conversation that we get in this movie, where she finally like admits that this is about her number, and Colin's like, why do you care? Why are girls so obsessed with this? Nobody cares. And she's like, decent guys care. And he's like, what does that mean? Why would they care? What does this have to do with anything? And so like she is basically talking about how she assumes that the perfect guy will care and therefore she must care, when in fact the perfect guy is sitting right here and doesn't care at all. And so this is sort of the foreshadowing of like how her perception needs to change in the future, and a nice little reprieve from like men obsessing about like how much the women in their lives are having sex. He's like, why, like a decent guy wouldn't care. And she's like, no, a decent guy definitely would care about what I've done when it wasn't his business.
Exactly.
I think it would have been nice if he had actually learned as well throughout the movie that it shouldn't matter, but it is put upon women to care.
Yes. Yeah. And maybe if he said, maybe a decent guy shouldn't care. If he cares, then maybe he's not decent.
And see, these are the little tweaks that I think if they had done this movie a couple of years later, might have happened.
Yeah.
Because like it is an exceptionally well done comedy movie that slightly misses the mark on the nuance of like the themes. But that's just like, I think, a nature of its time. And also, especially considering that this movie was in development for so long, I imagine like some of the references were like early 2000s references.
Right.
To like opinions about sex.
Yes.
And like that detail we learned about how the producers were worried that if she had sex with too many people would find her unrelatable. Like, it seems like there was also some like executive pressure to make it less than it is.
And that disconnect between the population and these executives and what they actually know of the people that they are making movies for. One of the bits of trivia that I found interesting was that Anna actually hated filming this.
I saw that too, which is very sad because I adore this movie.
Yeah, I thought that it didn't explain it. It just said that she hated filming this movie.
Yeah, it's too bad.
They probably pushed her hard.
Yeah, I get the sense that it was because she clearly cared about this movie. Like I've read stuff in the past where she was like, yeah, I worked like really hard to get this movie made. Like I came on as a producer to ensure that it was made. And so I think they just kind of like made her life a living hell because she was a woman who was trying to do something slightly unconventional. Gasp, women have sex. Disgusting.
Oh, how
Lock
dare.
them up.
How dare.
What they probably really wanted was something like, American Pie, where the women are the foils.
Right. Yeah, they are the objects, not the subjects.
Right. They're the foil to the sexual innuendo and not the progenitor. Or
again, back to, the Bridesmaids, Kristen Wiig's character. It's where it's once again, that's self-detrimenting. I have sex with these guys, but I love them. And then they're the ones who tear me apart instead of it being her getting rid of the guys because of her reasons. In Bridesmaids, it's them dumping Kristen Wiig. So yeah, maybe that's it, because you want that, it's better when the men are in the power.
I did kind of like that Anna gets to be the one choosing.
Yeah.
These are all her choices. She chose to go back.
But
and
that
then
was
she
still her
chose to also
choice.
walk away, which is in its own way empowering.
Definitely.
For sure. Yeah, she is, she's cutting her own trail. How successfully or how straight and narrow that trail is up for debate, but at least she's interesting.
It's hers.
So she wakes up the next morning to find that Colin is already in her apartment, camped out, chilling. He's broken her coffee machine. He's tweeting about breaking her coffee machine.
If you were
He's
Twitter,
in Andy
you'd know.
Dwyer mode now.
Yeah, he's so funny. He's just, Chris Evans' delivery cannot be overstated. He is so funny. Let this man be funny in movies.
Well, you get the sense
he's more than Captain America, people.
You get the sense that they're becoming really easily and really quickly friends, and just friends who can just hang out together. She's not even upset. She's just surprised.
Right. Like, because he's being a nuisance, but he's doing it in a way to be a nuisance. So it's sort of like the fact that he is self-aware of the fact that he's being a nuisance makes him less of a nuisance. Yeah. That very funny kind of dynamic, but like they're very easy together. And he has made her a Facebook account so that the men can be finding her while he's trying to find them. We find out one is married with kids, so he's out.
Even though he tries to hit on her.
Well, it's not even that he hits on her. He just adds her on Facebook. And apparently in 2011, when you add someone on Facebook, it's supposed to be for something else.
Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're liking their photo at 2 a.m., that's a hit.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the complicated
digital landscape of flirting. Oh, amazing. We go to Colin's apartment quickly after this. He has a murder board for his searching of the men, which I love. I love a murder board. It. Like, my two loves are romance and mystery, and the fact that this movie can give me both.
Both can use a murder board.
I think everybody should have one at some place in their house.
Oh, yeah. Murder boards, impeccable interior design.
Oh, definitely.
We also get like a little bit of a nod to the fact that she was potentially bi-curious in the past, but then it turns out no, but also yes. It's a movie from 2011. There's a handful of, I wouldn't say transphobic jokes. I would say trans insensitive jokes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. And we also had the fat phobic jokes from earlier.
Yep.
Yes.
I've become desensitized to a lot of it, which is unfortunate. I should be outraged. But honestly, when the intent isn't to trash trans people, but to just call attention to an ancillary thing that they don't have any knowledge of, I let it slide because it's no Ace Ventura.
Oh, yes. True.
Yeah.
I have a reaction, but it's usually internal. And then I look at you going, okay, if she's not reacting, I'm not going to say anything.
That's actually that's a great way to do things.
You have the right of first refusal to decide how offended you should be.
I really appreciate that. I like it when you're offended for me, but I appreciate it.
Oh, and I get so offended. I mean, if somebody even gives us like a weird side eye, we were on a cruise and someone gave a side eye and I was like, I'll fight him. Go out. Let me just go. I'm going to cut this bitch down.
When I came out, I had the worst wig ever. It was the worst. It was so bad. Anna Faris would have worn it for that little
just to have it burned.
That bit that she did. But she saw it and she was going to lunge over the table at them in this restaurant. Yeah. And I was like, no, it's not worth it. Just don't do it. So I appreciate that. But yeah, the trans jokes, when they're these microaggressions, I let them go because
you have to look through it through a different lens, really.
Everyone can get offended at everything. It's how we react that means something, not how they make the microaggression. So you have to be the bigger person. Doesn't mean you can't throw someone down. It just means you have to do it with full knowledge of what you're doing. You don't have the luxury or the privilege to react without thinking first.
That's funny. It's like literally what I I always like to throw my students in here, but it's literally what I say to my students when they're having their bad days, their meltdowns. I'm like, it's okay to be mad. It's okay. Your feelings are valid. You're allowed to have those feelings. It's what we do with those feelings. So it's the same thing. It's what we do with those feelings of, hey, not everybody is going to be comfortable with everything all the time. Do I think that they should be treating anybody different poorly? No. But you're allowed to be uncomfortable because sometimes things are new and sometimes things are not something you're used to being exposed to. And you're allowed to have that uncomfortable feeling. What we do with that? Do we treat people like shit because you're uncomfortable? No, it's not their fault that you're uncomfortable. It's you. So you need to deal with it on your own. And how you deal with that is what matters.
Ah, that's a very nice correct yourself before you wreck yourself.
Basically, I mean, because I'm not allowed to say, fucking get her shit together. I'm not allowed to say that in the classroom.
So yeah, I mean, it happens in movies, but again, unless it's egregious, I don't really hold it against the writers for not having full knowledge of things.
For sure. But I do think that it's one of those things where, like, when you encounter it, especially in a movie or a book or a piece of media that you like recommend to other people, I think it does a disservice to be like, oh, and then there's some not okay stuff, but don't worry about it. It's like, we should worry about it. It doesn't mean that it should affect your overall enjoyment, but it is an acknowledgement of like, I have seen this. I understand that that's not okay. I understand why it's not okay. I will be able to articulate it, but I can also look at this as a whole, see the context, and appreciate it in spite of that, while still holding space for not okay.
Right.
Like, I am allowed to be offended by the fat suits. I hate when people get put in fat suits as like a shorthand for you're ugly. Like,
I really, on Friends, I didn't like it. I didn't like it in
New Girl?
Shallow Hal
New
or
Girl.
New Girl.
Oh, I freaking hate Fat Schmidt.
It is,
and it's not Fat Schmidt that I hate. I actually like him because I can't stand Schmidt. she knows my dislike of Schmidt because I think he's
my evil little kitty cat. I love him.
Oh, he's just
the worst man in the world.
Oh, he really is. But
he's so funny.
Oh no, he's funny as hell. But I hate the way they have. Oh well, he's fat, so he's bad.
He's worth less.
Where, Fat Schmidt's a sweet guy. He's the big guy, and he's actually sweet. He's stupid, but he's sweet.
I mean, they had like a plot line about that with his Merritt Garland. No,
yeah, with Elizabeth.
Weaver.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Whole
she liked, her big guy. And no, she was wrong too, but that's another story.
The point being, we can still love New Girl, while acknowledging that there are some dated aspects of that show that are hurtful to us, and that's okay to be hurt, and it's also okay to still enjoy the thing that hurt you, if you know that it was not intended maliciously,
right?
Or even if it was, you can say, that's fine. I'm going to choose to enjoy this anyways. And I think it does us a disservice to be like, oh, people are so sensitive. Why even mention it? It's like, because it's important. It's important to always recognize, hey, that's not okay. To remind yourself, don't do that again. To remind the people around you, I will not stand for that now.
Yeah.
Be better at what you're doing.
And that's it. Just be better.
Pay attention to the details of things and correct yourself as you go.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And again, you can't change the past. So when you see things in movies, be upset about it, but try to be better next time. If they make a movie and you are involved, be better.
Mm-hmm. And acknowledging the things that aren't better is the easiest way to start doing that.
Yep.
But what doesn't get better is Anna Faris's British accent.
Oh my Lord.
We found another man. This time it's Martin Freeman.
She started strong though.
Did she?
She started as strong as Anna Faris could start. And then it progressively got worse.
So funny.
To a point where I get embarrassed easily by, uncomfortable things like this. I was writhing on the couch. I was trying to get up and walk away, but I'm like, I have to watch this because we're doing a podcast on that. I can't just walk away. And I'm laughing, but I'm trying to walk away from it. I am fighting myself more than I am the movie. So
I have trivia. So my favorite thing is that the tie he's wearing in the cafe is a St. Bart's tie. St. Bart's Hospital is from Sherlock.
Oh,
that's the hospital he works with, the Sure,
This is a movie
Nice.
that is very aware that it has a lot of high class cameos.
Yes.
And they're like,
Right.
they're willing to do a lot with it. So Chris Evans has found another boyfriend. It's Martin Freeman. He's going through divorce and has an open house. So they're like, let's go to the open house. Of course, we get our second beat with Chris Pratt, where a different house is open, but not an open house. It's his house. They have wandered into his house. He's very upset about it. It's a very funny, just little aside. But then we meet up with Martin Freeman, and it turns out that when she dated him, she pretended to be British. Chris Evans thinks this is hilarious because it objectively is.
It really is.
And
They
she's
have a
trying
very
to get
cute
him
back and
away,
forth.
but she won't leave.
She didn't want him to know.
Yeah, he's like, no, I have to
I
see
gotta
all
see
of this.
He's like, I have a feeling I know where this is going and I need to live it.
Oh, so funny. And so then we immediately cut to her coming home like it didn't work. And so we learned that as they spent the day together, her British accent got worse as she got nervous. So then it went Cockney, then it went full Borat, then it went Swedish Chef.
It was so bad.
I'm trying to writhe right
it.
now. I'm thinking about walking out of our own podcast.
I use a lot of accents in our D&D game, and I have never lost the thread that bad. And I've had characters bleed into each other, and I've never lost it that bad. That was hysterical.
It was a very funny sequence. I think
It really was.
very well done.
It was very funny. She's so good at it. You can see her trying so hard to commit and failing. But I like to imagine like my meta narrative for this is that like her heart is fighting her on it. Like her body won't let her commit when she knows this is not right. If she has to pretend to be a fully whole different person for this person.
And like how long were they together that she was able to hold it together then and but couldn't do it in one bar scene?
They gotta ask questions like this because who knows? I like to believe this is one of her longer relationships, which is the funniest option.
I know.
So she's been very sober and very deliberate their entire relationship.
She's like, I'm a little rusty.
She's watching Bridget Jones over and over again, trying to get the accent down.
But she pulled it
from
out
an
of her ass
American
in the restaurant.
also playing a British accent.
Extremely funny. I loved it. So we move on. They hang out on the rooftop of their building. We learn a little bit more about his Colin's like musical ambitions and about how he doesn't want to play just like gigs for like performance money. Like he wants to like play real music. And she's like, okay, so you don't want to be successful. And he's like, no, I want to be like authentic. And that's like a whole thing. There's like an interesting thread for both of them about being like people from conventional industry families going the creative route and like struggling, but finding it worth it. But because that's not what this movie is, and because we can't get into the economics of any of it, they're not really able to go there. But like, there is something interesting there about both of these people choosing like chaotic creative careers and having to like find ways to navigate that. But also like neither of them seem concerned with their finances at all. So I guess I'm not concerned with them.
Yeah,
Right,
I guess
neither
so.
are
Yeah.
attended to. And even despite the fact that he opens up and he tells her, I want to play my own music, not once does that ever happen in the movie.
Right.
That
So,
is true.
like, he kind of has to compromise, but it's like I would rather him compromise if it was a like, well, I at least get to play music, but I do need to make rent thing. But because we're not interested in the economics of it all,
You don't get that struggle.
Yeah.
the stakes aren't there. So it's like, all right, whatever. He plays music. We're happy with him being authentic or whatever. We also get another flashback here. There used to be bonus features that I think must have just gotten deleted from my, like when Apple TV moved over from like the old movies app, but there used to be deleted scene featurettes. So she actually meets up with like a handful of other guys that they filmed, including Andy Samberg in present day,
Right.
that do not make it into the movie because ultimately I think it made it too long. So we only get the flashback for Andy Samberg's character, Jerry Perry. Excellent name. He has a puppet. The puppet is very involved in the sex.
Oh my God.
Love
that
that
puppet.
for him.
The
absolutely
slow
love it.
withdrawal of the puppet is
And it
priceless.
was
Such a
looking at
well
her,
done-
looking at him, looking at her, looking at him, and then moving. I'm like,
such a
God
well done
damn.
scene. It was so uncomfortable for everyone
so
involved.
uncomfortable.
Mostly
Just-
for the puppet.
I think so. That poor puppet.
Simply beautiful. Also, we didn't mention this when we were talking about Andy Samberg earlier, but Palm Springs, surprise banger of a recent romantic comedy. Palm Springs, one of the best romantic comedies I've seen.
I
in
want to
years.
see that.
I keep forgetting about it. It's on our list.
I have
So
not
good.
seen it. I definitely want to see that.
Good. It's on Hulu. Extremely, extremely good, and he's fantastic in it.
I love him.
All the best parts of Jake Peralta and all the best parts of Andy Samberg. Excellent.
I'm always impressed. I love Joanna Newsom. I really just love the album Wise. And the fact that he's married to her, when I found that out, it blew my mind.
And he's such a geek about it.
Oh my God. And I didn't know. And so, yeah, it's just like two worlds coming together.
We love a wife guy.
Yes.
But yeah, he's only in there insofar as to just like be another ex. And also in the next scene, they're like wandering around Boston. This movie is set in Boston, if that matters to anyone. It doesn't really matter.
It only comes up when Chris Evans takes her to
the Boston Harbor.
Yeah.
Well, he apparently one of my trivia things was that he was very happy about it being filmed in Boston because that's where he's from. So he's very comfortable with it.
And he got to like hang out with his family and
stuff.
But anyway, so they're wandering around Boston. She's like mad at him for not finding Jake Adams. So Jake Adams has been like the name that keeps coming back up because it's very clear that he's like her white whale, the one that got away. Mm-hmm. We don't really know a lot about him yet, except for the fact that he's from a similarly like well-to-do family. And like it's tough to get in touch with him because like he's from a big important family and he's like a world traveler. So like she's very disappointed that they haven't connected with him, and we learn a little bit more, which is that like he was her like first boyfriend, and they like made a pledge together to lose their virginities together.
Yeah. But
then he went abroad and she broke the pledge, and Chris Evans is like, well, who do you break the pledge with? We got to find that guy. Clearly, if someone was better than the angelic Jake Adams, and she has to admit that it was in fact the puppet guy. And Chris Evans laughs a lot and really enjoys this.
Can't blame him. I would have to as well.
Like, I also think that this is, though a joke, a missed opportunity to like talk about the fact that like clearly sex was not a priority for Jake, which is a fundamental disconnect between them, despite the perfection of Jake Adams. Mm-hmm. And like, I almost wish that her first guy like was good, because like it would set her on a course of like, I do enjoy sex, and like putting that part of myself down seems bad.
Right.
Like, why should I suppress something that brings me so much like joy and fun? Because again, like I really think it's a missed opportunity in this movie to make sex not this like big evil thing that is just like a normal human function, that if you're doing it safely and with consent.
Yeah.
Because ultimately in the movie we kind of find out she learns to love herself but never reconciles that part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sex is still the devil unless it's with a man that you love,
right?
And intend to marry.
Right. It still becomes a thing of, you have to do it the correct way, which is the way everyone told you to do it.
Yeah.
And it becomes less about her then and more about how society views her.
Which is unfortunate, but it's also 2011. So like there is only so much I can ask from this movie.
Exactly.
And I'm respecting that. I'm trying to respect that. So we get our first lunch ambush because her sister needs her help to tell her mom that their dad is coming to the wedding. The whole thing, it happens. I don't know. Nothing really important happens in this scene except for just like the funny setup. The mom decides she's not going to the wedding, not if that man will be there, which was fun flashback for me. There was a lot of chaos between my parents at my wedding. So
Same.
I was going through it with her. I'm like, Daisy, I feel you here. This sucks. Then because things seem increasingly desperate and out of control, Allie decides that Miami is not too far to try and find love, because a guy that she dated previously is an OBGYN in Miami. And his practice takes her insurance and she's due for a pap smear. So she's like, 2 for 1. Great joke.
I love that.
She gets a bad spray tan.
Oh my God, that tan was horrible.
Loves that. I also love because this is an anxiety that I've experienced at the doctor's office, where like when you have to like disrobe even partially and like you have to put your clothes somewhere, you're like hiding your underwear in your pants.
Yes.
The universal experience of not wanting people to see your underwear, except for her.
She's draping it.
She's like set dressing.
Okay,
room,
I mean, but
fancy
she was
lingerie.
wearing the lacy panties and bra to a
She was
pap
not.
smear.
Here's my thing. I don't think she was wearing them. I think that she
took them out. She
because,
put
like,
her other underwear in her purse.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
I must have been looking away.
Well, and also it's like it's so clearly not been worn because it's like perfectly flat.
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
It just came out of the store. Like
yeah, nobody
funny.
wears anything fancy to a pap smear.
And like she's truly the queen of setting a mood.
Yeah.
The problem is he does not recognize her until he looks down the barrel of her vagina and goes, Allie. Very funny joke.
It was actually when she comes back to her house and
what's going on down there?
Exactly. He recognized me from my vagina. I need to know what's going on down there. And I am like, that is hysterical.
Well, it's like Thomas Lennon, who plays the doctor, Dr. Ingold or whatever. He was on Reno 911. Perfect casting for that because that man is hilarious and he does awkward so well. And when he looked up from her pap smear and says, "Now I know you," it's like you just get so uncomfortable, but you can't help but burst out laughing at the same time. And you know, she must be mortified. And then it just cuts away and she's mortified. And of course she is, but it's just, he does deadpan so well.
Mm-hmm. He was a good choice for a movie where like you really need to get the punchline across and then get out. And he does it. He does a really good job. But things might be looking up despite this series of duds. One of her exes is actually an aide for like a senator, a big important man. So she gets a pantsuit and decides to go up to DC for a day.
A Leslie Knope pantsuit.
A Leslie Knope pantsuit.
but it is very Leslie Knope adjacent.
Yes.
But before she leaves, she discusses this plan with her sister who's come over to poop in her apartment because she doesn't want to poop in public. Relatable queen, yes. I get it. Unfortunately, when she goes to her sister's apartment before her sister's there, Daisy comes upon a mostly naked Chris Evans playing the guitar. Not fully naked because he doesn't like the way the cold instrument feels against his balls.
Exactly.
Incredible. But he's just like chilling mostly naked in Anna Faris's apartment and just like cracking jokes and being way too comfortable. And we just get to see a whole new level of their dynamic. Anna Faris is not fazed at all by him being there. She's just like, oh, I'm glad you guys have met. This is normal to me.
Yeah. Hey.
And they are so thoroughly comfortable, and her sister is so thoroughly uncomfortable. It's funny because her sister's suddenly the outsider in this situation, which she is not usually. Every other capacity she's been in this movie has always been within a group that they all know, and they're all very comfortable, and everyone loves her. Mm-hmm. But in this, Chris's character is focused on Anna.
Yeah.
Not on her sister. And they are the ones who are perfectly comfortable together. And I kind of like that. I really like that scene.
Mm-hmm. I did too. And he brings up the little sculptures again. And he's like, why don't you, because we finally get a mention that she is in fact job hunting. So she's like, I can use the pantsuit for two things. I can go to my interview and then I can go seduce a senator's aide.
The heretofore never mentioned
ever again job interview.
Yeah, of course not, because who cares?
Yes.
Money just falls from the sky in this world.
Apparently.
Cloudy with a chance of money.
Exactly.
Nice. But Chris Evans, once again, is like, what about these freaky little sculptures? Like, they're so cool. Not a lot of people can do that. And she's like, nobody wants that. And it's like an aside, but I do think it's a very representative of like, nobody wants me. Like, that's the real me. Nobody wants that. I can't do that. I have to wear a pantsuit. I have to be someone else, someone better. When in fact, the person she already is what people probably actually want.
Evaluating your value is a big part of this entire movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
what
I think,
makes someone valuable?
And
part of the equation.
And this is her listening to someone who is being a friend without being a sycophant, who isn't part of her normal group, who's saying, this is good. You should do this. I think you really this has value. And she never got that from anyone else because no one's ever mentioned it. This is such a big part of her life. She's very quick to dismiss it too. Right. She's very quick to dismiss her own work, her own worth. And this is that device they use for that.
All right, I see how much time we've already spent on this. I feel bad,
That's
but I'm
okay.
gonna try
We're
to pick it up.
keeping this a single part. It is not going to be a 2-part. It's just going to be longer, and that's okay because we're having a good time.
Yes.
So.
All right, fair enough.
She says this now, but we'll be doing disclaimers later saying that it's a 2-parter.
We're not doing a 2-parter. We're doing the whole thing. Whole shebang.
We're declaring it. All right, so we go to DC. There's some Anthony Mackie stuff. In between her flirting with Anthony Mackie, we see that Colin has broken into her apartment once again and is now taking a bubble bath in her bathtub and listening to her iPod.
I love that
Remember
too.
iPods?
Yes.
He takes a selfie. It's very cute. He's just very charming, like very clearly like making himself comfortable in her life where she is trying to make herself uncomfortable to get into somebody else's life.
Yes.
Which I thought was a nice little contrast. Things seem to be going well. She really hit it off with Anthony Mackie when they re-met up. He sent her a fancy dress that's way too small.
Holy crap. When she came off the elevator, she couldn't barely walk. I was like, oh my God.
It's
Even
like
for a pencil
very
skirt,
tight.
it was very tight.
Oh my God.
It was a super, super tight dress. Emphasizes how teeny tiny she was. There's like more pantsuit jokes. Like the pantsuit jokes are very clearly like a femininity kind of heteronormativity joke, but it's fine because she does look kind of weird in a pantsuit, so I'm like willing to let that slide.
Yeah.
But the flashback for Anthony Mackie is she's wearing pearls and has like a haircut that looks like her mom's.
Yes.
And they're canvassing for George Bush, which is very funny. I like laughed out loud. I forgot that it was
I
George
know.
Bush.
I was like, well, that's not how I saw that going.
Incredible stuff. And so she thinks things are going really well, and he's like, we got to get married. And she's like, what if we kissed first? And he's like, ew, gross. I'm gay.
You're
knew
going to
that,
be
right?
my beard.
Like, I found out I was gay because I dated you.
And I said, to me, male or female, that has got to be one of the most heartbreaking things to hear from somebody. And I get it, hey, I'm so glad that you found who you are, but I didn't want to be the cause of it. Not because don't want you to be that. I just don't want to be that bad. In my head, that's what I'm thinking, See,
I took it the exact opposite direction. Obviously, she's on your side with this, but in my opinion, it's like, even you, a person that I clearly still have a rapport with later, if I could not be attracted to you, clearly women weren't for me.
That's true.
Where I went.
See, I could see that. I guess my self issues, my self-esteem issues is like, okay.
I actually saw it as a liberating thing. She was surprised by it, but she should be happy about it because he got to find out who he is. It's unfortunate he feels he still needs to hide it. So.
Yeah, his point is basically like, I want to run. I want to take this all the way. I want to be a president. People are ready for a black president. They're not ready for a gay black president, which I don't think he's wrong about.
I don't think he's wrong.
I don't think he's wrong,
but it's not 2011.
Definitely a societal issue and not a personal issue. I would love to see a gay black president, but I want someone who is capable.
Yeah, not because they're gay or black and or both. It's because they know what they're doing. That's all I ask. But one thing that was actually kind of like, and it could just be me, the makeup on Anthony Mackie in that scene was very obvious. And I don't normally notice makeup on men. It was just under his eyes. It was
heavier.
It was very heavy. I watch a lot of drag queens, and you gotta get the right foundation for darker skin, or it just looks yellowy orange. And he had like a little underneath his eyes. I'm like, I've never noticed it before in movies.
I had missed the part where she had gotten a spray tan.
Yes, she didn't realize that.
When she was getting the pap smear, I was like,
is our color wrong?
The color off on our television? I was like, it's so bad. And I'm like, and she's explaining, I'm like, I feel stupid now because I just didn't see
some of the hair and makeup on this movie is baffling. But
like her hair at the wedding. I'm like, her sister's hair is gorgeous. What was up with that? That it was not good hair for her in that wedding.
They were clearly cutting corners somewhere, and it was in the styling.
Oh, definitely.
You get to the point of the production where you're bringing your own clothes and bringing your own makeup.
So the Anthony Mackie stuff takes place over the course of like 2 scenes, like the initial like re-meet cute, and then like the scene where he is like, I want a beard. And so in between that, she's like talking to Colin and like very clearly excited about like the direction things are going, which is important because later as she's realizing that, this isn't what I expected, he's trying to like call her, clearly kind of trying to interrupt because he's like, oh no, wait, if this plan works, she won't be with me. And so we're seeing kind of Colin start to fall from her from afar and being like disappointed when he can't get in touch. Lucky for him, Anthony Mackie is gay in this universe, and so she needs some cheering up. So they go out on the town, and this is our first real, like, they are hanging out just to hang out, not in service of the shenanigans that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's very cute.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, he does a little electricity thing, an electrician scheme badly. But he has wanted to, like, bring more attention to her little clay diorama people. And so he, like, did this, like, fun lighting thing where, like, now there's a spotlight on each of them so that, like, she can really highlight how neat they are. Like, he's been naming the characters within these dioramas. Like, very clearly, he's like, I want to elevate the thing you're already doing that you seemed most passionate about. I want to show you that I believe that they should be seen. Like, it's just, like, this really sweet moment of,
It really was.
It really shows that he's, like, they're becoming very close. They're becoming good friends. But he is definitely, like, flipped over from the carefree, love who you can, when you can, and to move on, to definitely more of a monogamous viewpoint where he is trying to get her to understand his feelings without saying them.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses those the diorama characters as his interest.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that increasing as it goes. I mean, he literally puts a spotlight on it. So,
well, and also, what was he doing while he was setting up this electrician situation? Not hooking up with other girls.
Exactly.
Like, suddenly, he's not using her apartment to hide. He's using her apartment to reveal.
Exactly.
Themes. We get our another light transphobia when he dead names her hookup from college and then continues to use she, her pronouns. I think Anna Faris uses he, him, but it's unclear if she's talking about him or Anthony Mackie. So
right.
Yeah.
we move on. Colin takes her to a like big basketball stadium that he once worked at and has keys from.
He has the card that they never turned off, apparently.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and so they play basketball. They play strip horse, which I love. I don't know if it's because basketball was a very formative sport for me, and playing horse against boys who underestimated me was like a big part of my game in the past.
Nice.
But I really enjoyed it. It's very cute. They eventually leave her terrible dress that's too tight for her behind, and go kind of like chat. They have like more discussions about like both of their ambitions and their creative expertise. Then we get the next line that me and my best friend quote back and forth to each other all the time, which is, "We are gonna jump in the hopper," which Chris Evans sings because they're having a conversation about like stop doing things that people say that you should do and do things like you want to do. Like, I think it's a great idea to jump in the harbor. Yes, it's a great idea. We're gonna do it. And so they jump in the Boston Harbor, and it's adorable. And it's very cold.
And probably not hygienic.
Yes,
for sure.
We joked about that for about 20 minutes. We're like, they're going to need tetanus and rabies and possibly an STI.
I mean, we know
panel.
Anna has health insurance, so presumably she's up to date on her shots.
Exactly. But I'm still, but that harbor.
And the smell of it when they get home, how they acted.
Yeah, no,
how they got through that moment.
I mean, I know they've been putting a lot of work into cleaning the Boston Harbor, but
still a lot of tea in there.
But yeah, basically, like they have this moment. She's wearing his shirt now because she can't wear the dress anymore, and they start kissing, and then they start moving in another direction. Even Anna Faris, like she starts like unbuckling his pants before she's like, "Wait, I need to slow down," and I am okay with that conceptually as a like, hey, maybe I need to like make relationships more about like the person rather than like getting to the next stage. Like, I think that makes sense.
Yes.
But like, I do think that we are missing out on a beat about her acknowledging like maybe the number doesn't matter. Like
Right.
she's slowing down because of the number, but like she has every intent on consummating this attraction at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we're missing a beat where she like has to sort of wrestle with, you know what, maybe this whole number thing was the wrong way to go about it. Maybe I don't care about that actually. And we never really get that.
Right.
So,
I think that's, when they're laying there, that's like almost like they did a mission accomplished where we didn't have sex, but we still like each other.
Mm-hmm.
right. It's like, are you going to be celibate forever? What are we doing?
Yeah. I think you just forgot that your whole point was that you can have sex and just decide that that's the person you like.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you can have sex and love, and
Yeah.
both of them are equally good and important. And it's wonderful when you can find them in a single person. But we don't really have that beat. But we do have the, like, they like each other beat. So they sleep together without sleeping together. And we have a, like, reflection scene where it's the morning after, and she starts to try and sneak out of bed to do her zhuzhing and her, you know, making herself look pretty in the morning. But Chris Evans wakes up before she can escape. And it's like, wow, you're so beautiful in the morning. And oh my goodness, she didn't have to primp to get the compliment and validation.
And she looks very similar to how she did in the beginning of the movie.
I know.
Right.
We can't get bogged down in this because she looked identical in every scene.
I think what was good, though, was, I mean, we talked about, you know, them not having sex, but the fact that the way he reacted to not having the sex, I think maybe helped smooth over that missed beat. Because he didn't have a reaction like, you're rejecting me. He had a reaction like, this is good for us. You know, we're still going to be together. This is something I want.
Yeah, I'm going to keep kissing you. Like, I'm not going to reject you back because I have hurt feelings. Like, it is a very sweet moment.
And he wasn't like the quintessential, you know, dick about it, really.
Like, he made some jokes like, what if I just put it in like this much?
Yeah.
You know, like, he's clearly like just joking around, but at the end of the day, he's like, you know, I still want to touch, I still want to kiss, I still want to hold you. Like, you are still important to me, even without, like, you know, doing this.
Right.
So I do like that. But, like, because there is such a, like, textual fundamental thing that she is trying to live up to, I feel like not acknowledging that loses a little bit of the, like, well, what are we doing here? You know? So I would have liked an extra beat.
That kind of calls it to the end shot, you know, so we got to get there.
We got to get there. We're moving through.
We're almost through. We got to get to the marriage, though, the wedding.
Yeah, the wedding.
Yeah, the wedding. So we're close to the wedding. But we still have a handful of beats to get through. So the next morning, she accidentally steals his phone because apparently they have the same phone. She goes to another wedding prep meeting where it's revealed that she's with Colin and all the girls are aghast. Horror. Oh no, your rapey neighbor? Jesus.
I know.
Oh my God.
It's like, that was just thrown out very loosely.
But I do think that it's like, I feel like that tracks for these women because, like, the way that we have been introduced to these women are, like, very sort of close-minded and prudish about, like, what men are right and what men are wrong. And like, I don't think that they're thinking about it deeply. They're like, anyone who likes sex must be a rapist.
Wait till they find out about Bandit.
Well, I mean, even like when when they start to hook up and like when they're talking and he says to her, well, maybe, you know, like I want to marry the last person that I sleep with. And he says, well, you could be the last person I sleep with. And she's like, what are you going to do? Rape me and kill me? And so, I mean,
the Jake Adams joke later.
Yeah. And it's like, man.
Yeah, rape is thrown around pretty liberally.
Yes.
In a joking fashion, which is not great. But I think it tracks for the kind of people we're talking about. People for whom this isn't real. It's not a big deal. And it only happens from, like, strangers and degenerates.
And these are all highly, you know, upper middle class.
Yeah, like there's very clearly a class thing happening here as
because these aren't your average people. I mean, maybe the bartender guy.
No one's going to work here.
No.
So. Yeah, absolutely not. But she is pretty quickly cowed from her excitement of the day by everyone telling her, like, no, wrong, he's bad. He's the guy you date before you date the last guy. Like, he is not the destination. He's the journey. And so she, like, is basically beaten down by the world and is like, all right, fine, I agree. So she's, like, working through some things. She's working on her art. We actually get to see her making the little dioramas when her/his phone rings. And because she still has Colin's phone, they haven't exchanged them yet, and finds out that he has withheld Jake Adams's contact information from her. He had it in his hands, his hot little hands.
He loves
but
her.
Didn't turn it over.
He don't want to hand that to her.
Because he doesn't think that it matters anymore.
Yeah.
But then she does the classic thing where she tries to catch him in a lie, which no one is above.
Nope.
Let's all be honest with ourselves. And she's like, hey, did you ever hear from Jake Adams? And he's like, nope. But, like, they're trying to, like, have a cute time. He's being really cute. And she's like, oh, yeah, well, I'm, like, not in the mood tonight. So here's your phone back. And he, like, realizes what has happened. And she basically parrots the stuff that her friends were saying because, like, she's afraid, and like she so clearly wants to be a people pleaser, but if the only person she's pleasing is herself and this guy that no one else in her life likes, like the strength of her convictions is just a wet noodle. So they break up and she calls Jake Adams, and then she and Jake Adams go on a date. We have the weird scene where she puts in hair extensions that makes her hair look exactly the fucking same. Baffling. Also,
and, and the hairspray around
in a circle.
And then she tucks in the price tag of the dress, thinking maybe later on she's going to return the dress. But you just put hairspray all over this dress, and we never see any conclusion to that with that dress. It was
what was the point of the tag? Because we know you're not, hurting for money. At no point did you say, I'm going to get gas.
Is. Like, she made a comment to Colin earlier in the movie about, like, don't you worry about making rent? So, like...
Yeah. I mean,
textually, it sort of exists as a concern. I think it was more, though, this is another costume she's trying on. Like, I'm going to take it in a less economic direction. I'm going to take it in a, like, she doesn't have the wardrobe for a high-class society lady like her family, but now she's trying to fit back in there, so she had to go shopping.
It's another beard.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that's kind of how I took it. Jake Adams' personality is rich. It's just, he is rich. That's his personality. He is
affluent,
truly
white, cishet man.
Yes.
The least interesting man we've met in any of these flashbacks. We don't actually get a Jake Adams flashback, though.
No, but he is so painful.
That's how generic it is. You don't need a flashback. You know he was a white boy.
I mean, he's handsome.
That was his title. That was what he did. And then he became a white man. That was his title. That's what he did.
He's forgettably handsome.
Right.
That's it. I did like his little salt and pepper on the sides. That was cute. But that was about like,
That says more about us than him.
Yeah. I mean, exactly.
So they're dating now, and I guess it's fine. Like, they have a very surface level conversation. He seems surface level approving and enamored of her, and so I guess we're dating now. There's another surprise lunch guest with her sister where we finally meet her dad and her dad's new girlfriend, and nothing happens, so we move on. Like, this whole, that's like such a nothing burger series of plots.
It's a way to put Ed Begley Jr. into a scene along with the spy from Psych. So.
Yeah.
But then also it gives us the opportunity to go and have to tell mom that dad's girlfriend is coming, and then mom getting all excited about Jake.
Yeah. So like, that's like kind of, I don't know. I feel like we could have done more with the parents if they were going to be as involved as they are. Cause I feel like neither of the parents, other than like one or two lines, really give us a lot thematically or plot wise. Like, it's like, they're sort of just there, but they don't really seem to, like, their active plot doesn't seem to be doing much. Like, they seem more like backstory people. I wish the parents' relationship said more about what Allie was going through, and I don't feel like they quite nailed that. Like, it was kind of just like a side gag.
They're kind of like The Job. They were there to inform the trope, but not actually play it out.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I felt like there was something missing.
Oh, no, it definitely was missing. I think they should have definitely delved into what made her your parents, and, they are going to be part of your life. If
the expectations and the sort of strife that she saw modeled for her. Like, I don't know. Yeah, there was enough airtime dedicated to the whole parent conflict that I felt like it should have mattered more to me, one way or the other. But it felt like it mattered more to Daisy, who I don't care about. Yeah, like, I'm not concerned with your story, Daisy.
She didn't even meet Colin enough she didn't even meet Colin once in order to disapprove of him. Just only approve of Jake.
Exactly. But but to your point, like, this whole sequence leads up to, they think the mom is going to have a huge blow up, but they're still trying to get the mom to the wedding. But then the mom is so distracted by the fact that apparently she and Jake Adams were seen in a newspaper together. She's so excited that they're back together. She's skipping. She's delighted. Her daughter has finally come through for her. So of course she's coming to the wedding, because Jake's coming to the wedding, right? Mm-hmm. So like, finally, she has parental approval. Delicious.
She literally says, I'm so proud of both my daughters for the thing that they shouldn't really be known for, getting married and dating a guy named Jake.
Yeah, exactly. Also, she says this line, which is like the most gut-wrenching line of the movie, in my opinion, which is, this is your life, Allie. Don't get creative.
Oh no, that hit me hard. That hit me very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Never been told those words exactly, but I have been told words very similar, and it just smacked me. I was like, oh shit. Wow. This is a comedy? I'm not supposed to have feels.
and honestly, with this line, I think it's revealing of something that the parents could have been doing, which is like the dad is kind of this specter for a lot of the movie. It's like, oh, I hate your father. I hate his young girlfriend. I hate everything. But then when we meet him, he's just so happy and excited all the time. And it's like he has chosen to live an unconventional life and is happier for it. Her mom, who has the perfect life that everyone's trying to live up to, is clearly miserable in this museum of a house all alone. And I think that they could have pushed the mother's unhappiness a little bit more to contrast it with like the dad making a different choice to kind of, you know, especially at the wedding at Big Lee Jr. is like, your mom doesn't dislike you. She dislikes the me she sees in you. And like, that's an interesting concept that you never put on the page. Like, show me that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that also was very, very poignant to me. Just that, you know, it's not you, it's what you represent. That's the problem.
Yeah, it comes back to the way that we expect relationships to go, and the fact that our relationship didn't go the way your mom wanted. She now resents anything that's shaped like me in the world, which is like, that's interesting. We didn't see enough of that for me to really buy that landing, but like, that's I think a direction they could have gone with that plot line that would have been more effective. It's there, but it's not there, you know?
I mean, it would have been nice to also have like a scene where mom was in her apartment and like said something about her little sculptures, very derogatory.
So or like that she brought one over, because like it looks like she's making like a cake topper at one point. I don't think we ever see it on the cake.
Yeah. Why make that and not have it part of the
feature?
Yeah.
But yeah, you get that, like to have that to see mom's actual putting down of her creativity and her individuality and the things that she enjoys, like maybe stick her nose up at her decor or something. So you get that feeling that that's what she disapproves, is that free thinking, free form, creative that she is in reality, and not the people that she's pretending to be all along. And then when that statement comes back, you know, don't be creative, or, you know, she's not mad at you. It's about what that you remind her of me. That would have been so much more poignant.
Of course, the point could have been that she never was at her apartment.
That's true too. She
never bothered to get to know her.
Yeah.
Right.
I also just think though that it would have been important to see the mom genuinely miserable, independent of whatever's going on in her daughter's life. Because I think we can read a lot into this woman has nothing going on.
Oh yeah, no.
But I do think it would have been valuable to see this woman who, like, for all intents and purposes, is the person that Allie is trying to be, like, functionally in her life, but then to see that ideal be miserable. Like when you're like, this is what I want, you put something on a pedestal and you like climb up on the pedestal and it's like, oh, this sucks. Why did I want this?
Exactly.
I think that would have also been an effective like counterbalance to it. But in any case,
forum I wanted to be in.
But a good counterbalance that I saw was we have a extremely white Massachusetts montage where she and Jake Adams are going places together. And there's a sequence where she and Jake Adams and her sister and her future brother-in-law are like on like a double date at the beach, all wearing like sweaters around their shoulders.
Yes.
Impeccable. But like it's a very fun like contrast because like the sister and brother-in-law are like all over each other, like very affectionate, and she and Jake are like politely sitting next to each other, and Jake like makes this expression like, ooh, it's a lot of PDA. And like I thought that was a really effective like, all right, so these two people aren't in love. And it's actually great if you're like affectionate with each other. And so like I thought that was a nice little subtle like dig at like even the idealized montage doesn't seem to be going great. So finally it's the day of the wedding. We've gotten to the last final piece of this movie. The wedding is happening. She and Colin run into each other on the landing of their apartments. Colin is also going to a wedding, but it's none of her business what wedding he's going to and why. So, who cares? She's with Richie Rich now. We're moving on. It doesn't matter that Colin is incredible in his suit. We move on. We ignore it. Okay, so the wedding. A lot of things happen that are ultimately not super important. Daisy's dress doesn't fit. the wedding coordinator has a list of every wedding happening in the city. This
Because
is important later.
The harp player couldn't be there.
Hurt their finger or thumb or
something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, when Anna leaves her apartment, Chris is leaving his apartment, and she's, got her dressed to go to the wedding, and he's in a suit, and she's like, oh, where are you going? And he's like, oh, I'm going to a wedding. Whose wedding? And he's like, nobody you know. So there's that too, that, first you're thinking, is he going to just go to the wedding? Because she did ask him, and he did say he would go with her. So maybe he still thinks he's going to the wedding. But then you realize
that would have been a really interesting choice of him being like, you invited me, I'm coming to the wedding. And to have both the boys there at the same time. That would have been funny. That would have been a very different ending to the movie. And I don't think it would have been as good.
No, definitely.
It would have been a choice. And
it would have been more slapsticky. I think at that point you would have get that slapstick comedy, because then it would have been that whole juggling, keep going back to the Community, Abed juggling the two dates at the dance. That's what that would have become, and even though he knows that she's with Jake, it would still have become
Who's it going to
awkward.
be, Colin or Jake?
Yeah, and it would have become awkward.
And real Bridget Jones kind of situation.
Well, and we would have lost the reverse grand gesture that I think makes this movie unique. But we'll get to that.
Yes.
So the wedding's happening. Right. Love is universal, but every couple is unique. Very sweet.
Very.
I like the self-written vows, and I like that they are a good example of we don't know a lot about Daisy and Eddie, the two people getting married, but we do know that Jake and Allie could not write these vows about each other because they don't know each other.
Yeah.
She knows that he is rich and mom approved. He knows that she is there.
Exactly.
These people do not know each other. They do not care to know each other. They care about the idea of being together, and it's very clear. The dad talk happens. She finally gives a sober speech, which is exciting.
Nice.
And it's very sweet. And it talks about, the growth and how she's, and you can see her kind of working through things during her speech where she's acknowledging that the brother and sister-in-law are more or the brother-in-law and sister are more themselves when they're together, and they seem like equals. And you can start to see pieces coming together in her mind.
Yes, and how they're comfortable with one another and with who they are with each other. The longest pregnant pause in the history of movies happens at that point too, because we were like, that pause gave birth and got pregnant again. I mean, it was so long, but yeah, it was that awakening of well, shit, that's what I want. It's not so much the marriage. I want that relationship, the partners, the who we can be with one another and not have to pretend, because she knows her sister's not pretending and she knows that the dude's not pretending. So yeah, it was a good speech.
Then she has a conversation with Jake where she starts to probe the hey, remember how we lost our virginities to each other? That did not happen, actually. And he's like, oh, what? You've had sex with two guys in your life? Oh, well. And I'm like, sir, are you saying you've only had sex once in your life? I'm so fascinated to know if Jake has had sex since Allie.
Oh my God.
I think that would have been such an important detail. But we don't get
years.
That.
How does he think that she just didn't have sex with anybody?
He almost reminds me of the robot. The senator robot.
The senator robot on Parks and Rec. Yep, that's who he is.
He just doesn't have a lot of emotion, except for when he knows he's being feels
until he gets
slighted.
Pissed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so she's like, no, I've slept with 20, and he's like, ha, you've slept with 20 guys? Yuck. And she's like, okay, we clearly need to talk.
Yeah.
Then we get the line all right, fine, I might not have been your first, but I want to be your last. And that's when she makes the joke, oh, are you going to rape and kill me? Which is very off color. I unfortunately do laugh every time.
Oh yeah, well,
such a jarring thing to say.
Yeah.
It's so dark, but it's a good response to an objectively kind of weird thing that he said. And she's reacting uncomfortably, validly, in my opinion.
And it's also, she doesn't know him. And the way he said it was, I think she said it almost as a way to shock.
Again, we don't live in a safe society for women, and it could have been just a genuine reaction,
She's also testing him, because she can say shit like that to Chris Evans, and he'll be like, "That's hilarious."
Yeah,
but this guy has no sense of humor. He is nothing, and so they break up because she realizes I deserve better. Your version of perfect is not the version of perfect that's compatible with mine. Her mom's very upset about this, but finally her sister comes to the rescue in an uncomfortable parental situation rather than the other way around. And her sister provides a distraction, which is that the reason her wedding dress didn't fit normally is because she's pregnant. Okay. Sister's pregnant, I guess, but it serves as I'm throwing this distraction bomb you get out of here.
Right.
So Allie grabs the list of all the weddings going on in Boston from the wedding coordinator and takes off.
Of which there's only like 12. So
I mean, in all of Boston. And she didn't check
she didn't
the
have the
names.
time to travel to 50 of them.
She could get the addresses, but she didn't look at the names of the wedding participants. She just bolted into those weddings.
I mean, honestly, I buy it. I know there's that trivia like goof, like why would she have gone to Chris Pratt's wedding? And it's like, I don't know, because it's funny, man.
Oh no, it's funny as hell when she walks in, and that's when he says.
Also, conceivably, he could know him. Like she doesn't know.
That's
true. Yeah, he could be there playing in the wedding, which is
he could be there as a plus one for someone else. Like
true.
So there's plausible deniability for her going there. But anyway, so she takes a car, she takes a bike, she runs, she climbs over a wall, she ends up at Chris Pratt's wedding and says something weird in like a vaguely biblical Shakespearean
it was very Handmaid's Tale. It was like be fruitful or something like that. It was like holy shit.
And when she finally finds Colin, it's at this like big ritzy wedding. She realizes he's on stage with his band. What? I thought he didn't. I thought he cared about artistic integrity. Exactly. I guess Rhett came to.
Yep.
But so there's a really funny joke where she's not let in because it's like a big deal wedding. Like clearly some famous people are there or something. So she has to like climb a hedge to get in. And like when she's at the top of the wall, she says to herself, this is bullshit. I should have just waited for him at his apartment.
I know. I was thinking that too.
It's like valid, but also that's not who she is. She's impulsive.
But it was also like a comedy moment of where the character became very self-aware. Because usually I get where she gets embarrassed, but I get secondhand embarrassment. I have a hard time watching most sitcoms because of the uncomfortable. I don't like slapstick comedy. I don't like stupid situations that don't make sense. You got yourself into this. All you had to do was either say something or I hate it. And yet she had that moment of, oh, what the fuck am I doing? I could have just gone to the apartment. I know where he lives. Yeah. Literally.
But I do think that it's consistent with her character.
Oh, definitely.
What we know about her is that she acts first, she thinks later.
Very impulsive. And I appreciate that in her too.
She's just desperate to tell him. She it's like that When Harry Met Sally line, like when you realize that you've met the love of your life, you want the rest of your life to start right away. Like I think that this is very indicative of that. So she and also as soon as she gets there, she's not going to wait for him to come off stage. She immediately charges the stage and is like singing along with the song, trying to get him to talk to her. She
got the tambourine in there right at the right moment, but then the rest of it fell apart.
Yeah, she's just like interrupting the whole thing, and then she's like, actually, everybody stop. It's time for speeches. And then bodily drags him off stage, which we love it. And then they have their little final talk. Like her sort of final line is like, I'm happiest being myself, and I'm myself when I'm with you, which is sort of we've come full circle. Yes. She is who she is. She's a little bit crazy, but he likes that about her. And we get a sweet kiss. And then final beat of the movie. We're here. We're together. So this is the Aziz Ansari cameo where like she's lying in bed with Colin. I wish they were like naked under the covers to imply like they have actually had sex at this point.
Right.
Because like I still feel like for as cute as they are together, they have a fairly sexless relationship in a way that runs counter to the narrative, but okay. But anyways, she gets a voicemail from someone who was from her list that she was trying to get in touch with, and it turns out they didn't have sex at all. There was a funny situation that happened instead. She just forgot about it because she was drunk. And so they celebrate the fact that Colin is in fact number 20. She didn't go over her numbers to be with him. I hate this final beat.
I know.
Hate it.
I am not happy about
it negates so much.
Especially since they never had it's fine that the only reason I allow it in my brain is because they had already decided to be together. And so clearly she's over it. And so now this is just sort of oh wow, I got everything.
Yes.
And so it's fine. I think it sucks, but this is why I really wanted that beat earlier when they first decided to get together, where she had to sort of confront, this is bullshit. This is a bullshit system.
Yes.
I want you in spite of this bullshit system.
Definitely. I think maybe breaking the idea of there being a number that should be your limit. That definitely.
And also, there could even be an acknowledgement of they said most women, but most women, yeah. There are statistical anomalies. Maybe I'm just outliers. A statistic. You want to be an outlier with me? We're already outsiders. Let's be outsiders and outliers.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, that's where I feel like there's a missing, is it should be.
Right, the whole movie is about thumbing their noses at convention and what everyone else is doing.
And
so,
yet,
like,
still grasping onto that convention doesn't really negate it at all. So yeah, no, I agree. It was an uncomfortable, it was a funny moment, but it did kind of.
I think they were trying so hard to come back around to the hand job.
That, yeah, there's like a series of jokes about how she's bad at hand jobs.
Right, that they just
and he
ignored.
said she wasn't, it was your dry technique.
Yeah. It was funny, but it ultimately, that funny joke took away from the entire message of the movie, which, while it is a comedy, it still has that important message there of be yourself despite this convention, this purity culture that persists despite all evidence to the contrary that it's a reality. We should be doing the things that make us happy as long as they don't harm anyone else. And we shouldn't be judged by doing that. And this movie could have summed that up at the end.
It could have. It was so close.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
There could have even been like a second beat where like the Aziz Ansari story continues and he's like, but you did hook up with my friend, whatever. And she's
right.
Like,
oh, that would have been good.
You know? So like, then we could still have that funny beat and like we get a beat where like she's looking at like, maybe at first she's like excited, like, oh, I didn't go over my number. And then, oh no, I did go over my number. And she has to decide, oh well, and deletes the message or something.
Yeah, that would have been better. That really would have like just accepted that. And that it is just a freaking number.
The things about this movie that need changing are so minuscule and could absolutely still fit within its existing budget and time constraints.
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing about this movie that I'm obsessed with, is it's like, oh God, it's so good and it's so close to being great, but it's not. But you know what? I live and dream and I feel things.
I mean, some of my favorite movies I will tear apart too. So, I mean, you're going to find fault in them because there's no such thing as a perfect anything. But yeah, it could have been. It could have been.
So, we are here to talk about our feelings about movies. How do you feel about What's Your Number?
I feel satisfied. I feel thoughtful. Like, this is a movie that really makes me think about the way that the world thinks about sex. And I think that, like, I have a unique relationship to that, being asexual, but being in an allosexual marriage and writing spicy romance novels. Like, I am a person who does not experience sexual attraction, who is inundated with sex in all parts of my life, including like self-directed ways, like in my writing. And so like movies about sex and opinions of sex in culture just like make me really thoughtful about like how that looks as an outsider. And this movie just like, it always brings up like thoughts. And like when friends of mine are having trouble in their relationships, this is the movie that I like think back to when I'm like seeking to give advice on an experience that I have not had personally. And yeah, those are some of the emotions that come up around this movie. I also just like the ride or die aspect of the main couple, where they're like, we are imperfect together. And like, I think that is so lovely.
I think for me, seeing this as a first time, it's really something I've enjoyed. I have really come to enjoy this movie and like this movie, and it will be one I watch again. Probably several times over and over, because I do tend to do that. Early
in the mornings.
Right.
When I'm not awake yet, because she gets up at the ungodly hour of 3 and will watch movies without me. So yes, that's exactly what that will be.
But I think this movie can be summed up in probably 2 words: beautiful disaster.
I agree.
That this movie misses the point on some things, but it's ultimately a very beautiful film about people still trying to maybe find their way through messy situations.
It's earnest.
Right. It's not without fault, but no one is. And I think that it's not harmed by that fault. And I really enjoy this film. I think it's something that can be a favorite and not be a guilty pleasure, but just be a pleasure.
No, I agree with you on that. It was surprisingly better than I expected it to be, because again, I did not with the title of the movie, I was just thinking it's going to be another date hookup movie because it's what's your number, so you're asking for phone numbers. I do feel like it did miss a huge way of correcting wrongs, but I don't feel that it was ever intended for those wrongs to be corrected. It was definitely a movie about acceptance and accepting who you are, but I don't feel the purity culture really was even like, because it's not corrected as the movie goes on, I don't feel like it was actually a consideration based on the time period. And
yeah, I think time period and like certainly what we know, like the little bit that we know about like the producers and executives involved, like it sounds like it was a movie trying to go uphill a lot and written at a time where nuance was just not going to be possible, especially in context of that. And yet it does still manage to be a really earnest movie. It's really trying to be like, weirdos deserve love too.
Exactly.
Be nicer to yourself.
And even all the weirdos that she rejects, they're all still true to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're still who they are. You know, she doesn't want to date the bartender again because he seems pretty happy with being who he is.
Yeah, and he finally found a haircut that works for him.
I mean, yeah, that worked much better. But it's definitely a movie that it made me laugh. And like we were mentioning before, a lot of comedies just, they're funny, but I don't laugh out loud very much anymore when it comes to something like that.
And we did. Many times.
Sometimes it would like catch me like off guard. Like I'd hear it and then a beat later I'd laugh at it.
It was such a good pick. I'm so glad you picked something that I just wouldn't have even thought to watch.
Oh no. Yeah.
I think that's what makes it funnier.
And now
you're not expecting it.
It's a favorite.
Exactly.
But Bri Castellini, I have waited months to ask you this question. According to a certain test that you may have knowledge of, do you think there's femininity in this film? And how would we rate that in any real way?
Such a great question. Thank God somebody came up with a test that allows us to objectively evaluate. So I do think that this passes the Castellini test. So multiple named female characters were good there. That have to have a conversation either not about love or with their partner and not about their relationship. And I do think that happens. Like she and her friends talk about sex sort of objectively and just like as a thing that they experience. She talks to Chris Evans not about their relationship. They talk about their aspirations. They talk about like their work and their creative endeavors. Like she talks to her dad about her mom and her mom's expectations. Like there's lots of conversations
with
in this.
her mom and her sister about the wedding and about the dad and the girlfriend. So it's not about her relationship at all.
It's about her other people's relationships,
her life.
And her. Exactly. So like there's definitely conversations happening in this movie, despite it being a movie about love. There's a lot more, it's one of those old adages of like, you can't love others until you love yourself. And this is very much a movie that's like, has that at its core. And like, you can't love yourself until you know yourself. And you have to have conversations outside of your romantic life in order to be a full enough person to bring to a relationship. So they definitely spent time on that.
Yes.
And certainly multiple women were integral to this plot. The movie could not have moved forward without them. So like on the objective, perfect level of the Castellini test, I think this fits. I think, is this a feminist movie? Is certainly up for debate. It's trying to be.
But it's trying to be
a one of the guys feminist movie.
Yes.
And I think that's what ultimately limits it, because it's trying to like have its cake and eat it too. Right. But it's like, you can't be a sex positive movie that is ultimately still like, but you still do need to be under the number 20.
And it's okay for the guys
to have 300.
But you can't have 20 or even 13. It's definitely the equality and equity of feminism, which is something that is often forgotten. It's not about women versus masculinity being men. It's about the equality of men and women together, and that it does lose that equality. So it wants to be feminist, but it does kind of, You
I
gotta
think it's
squint.
okay to fail to be feminist while trying to aspire to feminism.
Oh, definitely.
So I think that
and it's definitely doing that.
Yeah,
Like
it's
definitely
trying.
it's trying a lot of stuff. It's trying to be like, this kind of woman deserves love too.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's still, it falls short because like the ultimate sort of goal is a very heteronormative, monogamous, like classic thing. And it's like, that's
Yeah.
fine. People can have that. It's just the sort of lack of acknowledgement of other options and how those are also valid and how your journey up to this point is valid. Like, I don't think it was quite dealt with, but it like clearly the movie has a lot of love for its weirdo oddball characters.
Mm-hmm.
This movie doesn't judge, but I think it was forced to be written and produced in a judgmental society. And I don't know how much of that is the movie's fault.
Exactly. But I still think it passes. I think taken into consideration.
well, I think the author of the test has told us that it passes. So therefore, it's
I'm
going
agreeing.
to
I
pass.
was agreeing. It passes.
Like, feminism is not an end, right?
No,
Like,
it is a
to be
process.
feminist, to be equal, to be equitable is not a end, because like even how we're evaluating things right now might evolve in the future. Our
Mhm.
understanding of the world and the way that we fit into it might evolve in the future. Like, we're learning new things every day. And I think the importance when looking at the social impact of a piece of media that is not explicitly trying to have social impact is just about, are we trying to be better? Are we trying to be more interesting? Are we trying new things, or are we
Mhm.
just replaying the same old stuff? And I don't think this movie is doing that. I think this movie is really trying something new, and I applaud it for that.
Definitely.
We haven't had a guest on before. You're our very first guest. I'm so happy.
I'm honored. Thank you so much for having me here. This has been so much fun.
I know it has been.
We love having you, and I really hope we can have you back for just another fantastic talk, because while we ran over time, honestly, it felt like no time has passed for
I
me.
know.
I know. I keep looking at the time like, it can't have been that long.
I
know.
love talking to you. I am so glad you're here. And not just because you're the author of the test that we use all the time, but because you are just a nice, fresh perspective
Mhm.
for us. And you're so knowledgeable and you are so insightful. And I really appreciate you taking the time with us to be here and to talk about movies that mean something, that may not mean something to everyone, but they mean something to the people that watch it.
Well, thank you. I know this has been so fun. I really appreciate y'all taking a chance on a movie you hadn't seen before, and your willingness to unpack it with me.
I mean, and anytime you want to just, nerd out, that's, we could do like a whole episode of us just nerding out about all of the different fandoms that we love. And yeah.
Clearly we have a lot of similar, like we all of us would go off on tangents, and then everyone else would be like, oh yeah. And this is my opinion on that thing.
So, I mean, yeah, we could literally do like a whole series on just that alone. But you can actually watch this movie if you would like to watch this at home on Amazon Prime, Fandango at home, Apple TV, YouTube, Hulu, Sling TV, Google Play. They all are about $3.99, give or take.
I don't think it's streaming anyway.
No,
I
it's
think you
not
have to
streaming
buy
for
it.
free. You do have to rent it or buy it, yes.
So, Bri, how can people find you?
Well, you can find me on pretty much all platforms at Bri's Own World, BrisOwnWorld, or you can just Google me. I'm the only Bri Castellini on the internet. And so if you Google me, yep, it's me. So for like the first 10 Google page results, I think, because I have been around on the internet. So if you're interested in my film work, BriCastellini.com will take you to all of my past and present film works. I do a lot of work in comedy, mental health, and mysteries. If you're interested in my podcasting work, that's also on that website. If you have seen the TV show Burn Notice, I did a 3-year podcast with my good friend Chris Cherry about Burn Notice.
I like Burn Notice. That was a
Nice.
great show.
Burn, Noticed is our podcast, and it still gets over 100 listens a week, even though we haven't made that podcast for 4 years.
Wow.
Which is absolutely wild. I think we are officially the Burn Notice podcast.
That's cool.
Which is delightful.
It's MacGyver with Bruce Campbell.
It really
and mortifying in the same parts. Yeah, it's a show worth deep diving.
And Bruce Campbell. Oh, no. My issues there.
He's great, but he's also Bruce Campbell.
Yes.
And then if you're interested in my prose writing, I have released a book. As mentioned at the beginning of this, I published my first romance novel last year. It's an anti-capitalist billionaire romance. When I say we're rehabbing the billionaire, I mean that man does not end the book as a billionaire. And that is very important to me in the current political climate.
Nice.
So you can find that on Amazon Kindle Unlimited, or buy a paperback or ebook copy. And yeah, I'm around. I'm a creative person who makes things and likes to help other people make things. So if you are a person like that, get in touch. I'd love to hear from you.
And we will provide those links on our show notes so that you can find Bri and all her wonderful avenues that she likes to tread down. Thank you so much, listeners, for sticking out with us and listening in as we went through What's Your Number 2011 with Chris Evans and Anna Faris. This has been Once More with Feelings with Beth and Michelle. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at OMWFPod. Visit our page at oncemorewithfeelings.podbean.com. Or send us an email. We'd like to hear from you at omwfpod@gmail.com. Take a moment to subscribe and rate us on iTunes and on YouTube.
This has been really a fun time, and we'll see you next. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Do you think the woman coming out of your apartment could have helped you with the being locked out problem?
Okay. I had a little situation that I needed to get out of, not unlike your situation here. So
Lied to her, then lied to me.
I look at it as trying to avoid her feelings. Wow. This is pretty cool. Where'd you get this?
I made it.
No shit.
Shit.